There's a rundown bar across the railroad track. Table for two.
Mayor, we're ready anytime you are.
Welcome, everyone. Today is August 27th, 2025. This is a special session of your Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, Full Board of Commissioners meeting. Before I call the meeting order, I want to announce that some commissioner staff and the public are attending remotely via Zoom by phone, and they also may be on site. All participants joining by phone should please mute your phone at this time when not speaking. And this is to avoid any background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself and title every time you speak, so the public that is participating knows exactly who is speaking. Also, when you do speak, please make sure you speak at an audible level into the microphone so that your comments can be captured for record by our unified government clerk. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General's office. I will now call this meeting to order. Clerk, can you announce the meeting and roll call, please?
Good evening. You're hereby notified that a special meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas is scheduled to be conducted in a hybrid format on Wednesday, August 27, 2025 at 5 p.m. for a budget workshop in the fifth floor conference room of the Municipal Office Building, 701 North 7th Street, Kansas City, Kansas. Roll call: Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Ramirez. Hill.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Lopez.
Here.
Stites. Davis. Bynum.
Here.
Garner.
Here, thank you. Tonight, we're scheduled for another segment in our series of budget workshops as we get here in short order towards the commission finalizing the 2026 Unified Government Budget for our county. I'll now turn the meeting over to our county administrator, Mr. David Johnson, and he'll take us from here.
As we have with other workshops with the commission, I'll pass it over to Reginald Lindsay, our budget director. Reggie.
Hello, everyone. Reginald Lindsay, Unified Government Director. Sitting with me is Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. He's going to start out with our slides tonight.
Morning or good afternoon. Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. We were asked to pull together some information on top contracts we have with the Unified Government. So this is a summary. The first thing that we have is a summary of some of the top contracts that we have as the Unified Government. We will note that these significant amount of them are not in any one general fund. So they range from Sheriff's Department, inmate housing, inmate medical, to IT services. There's some significant contracts for workers' comp, life insurance, the Wellness Center. Those are amounts that are paid out of employee health funds or the workers' comp fund that are allocated across all of our various funds. And then residential trash is the largest contract on this list. It's towards the bottom with waste management. That appears in the solid waste fund, so that does not impact the general funds or the tax levy funds. And this is meant to be informational based on information that was requested. So this is just some examples of some of the top contracts, and these contracts amount to.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes, these contracts on the screen amount to $46.6 million that were paid out in 2024. So most likely there would be inflationary numbers for this. The contracts are not completed in 2025, but we did have year-to-date numbers, if that would be helpful. And then we would also anticipate increases in 2026 from these numbers. I'll go ahead and move forward from here. The next item that we prepared was the top costs for the city and the county general fund for contractual services. So when we look at our city and county general funds, the contractual services totaled roughly $22 million. So these costs make up 80%, 81.5% of the contractual services budgets on the city side and 78% of the contractual services on the county side. So going from the top on the city general fund, our highest budget is for software maintenance agreements at $4.3 million, ATA transit fees at 3.9. We have fleet costs that are spread across our various departments at $2 million. Insurance costs at 1.8. So that's just the cost of insuring UG property and facilities and vehicles. That has been increasing substantially every year recently, much more than inflation. Our attorneys and lawyers' fees is roughly $1 million that we budget, and that's for across departments as well for any type of legal consulting that we do. Telephone services is a significant expense at about $900,000. We have been looking at that expense and trying to find ways to bring that down. That goes through multiple departments. The largest expense for that is in the technology budget. Housing and inmates on the city side is the amount that we pay for booking inmates in the jail for the police department. So when the police department and the municipal court book inmates in the jail, we pay a daily rate to the county side of the budget. So that's $790,000. Repair maintenance of buildings and grounds is roughly $700,000, and that's just the cost of maintaining our property and facilities. Mowing and landscaping services on the city side, that goes to land bank properties as well as UG facilities mowing. That's what's getting the monthly mowings right now, more frequent on the UG facilities. Employee training and travel, the majority of that cost is in the police department and the fire department for their training academies. We kind of like to refer to this as workforce development funding. This is something that keeps our staff highly qualified to do their jobs. Rent lease space, that's just the cost of renting any property that we have. A substantial part of that, about 300,000, is contractual with some of the Speedway property. Physical and medical associates, that's costs that we pay for any type of employment, health screenings, dues, memberships, and subscriptions. That's any agency that we have any memberships with. And then IT services and temp services are our last two of the top 15 costs that we have on the city side. And these cross multiple departments as well.
Commissioner Stites?
Stites District 7. Say that again about the Speedway. Which one did that fall under? I apologize.
There is an amount for rent lease space that I would have to honestly get more information from finance specifically, but I know that there's an amount that we budget for. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's for a parking lot.
Michael, I can help. Debbie Johnsher, Deputy CFO. It is a lease. We lease the space where the parking lots are for Sporting Kansas City. It's on Speedway property. So we have a lease set up with the Speedway to that we pay a lease every year. It's, I believe 2025 was about $375,000. And there is a CPI that goes into effect for next year. And I believe that's there's 5 years left on the contract.
So just curious, do they reimburse us the speed or the Sporting?
We're getting it. We have that all. We have the lease payment, the debt that was issued for the parking lots when they were put in. And I believe there was a payment that we amortized at the beginning of Sporting, and that is all getting paid back through the ticket tax
So are we saying
that we receive.
parking lot wasn't paved prior to Sporting? Because it was paved when the racetrack went in.
I don't know that I don't think the property where those parking lots are was not paved. We did those improvements for the parking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you. Dealing with that parking lot, weren't we supplementing it because the ticket costs we're not covering the cost of the parking lot, and we were supplementing it out of general fund a handful of years back, and we, I believe, raised the ticket price to cover the debt.
We did. Debbie Johnsher, Deputy CFO. I think it was back in it was either 2020 or 2021. I think that we increased up to $3.50. This is what we're receiving. And we actually just checked that a couple weeks ago, and we are still on target to get repaid at the current rate for by the time the bonds run out. So we do get paid, yes. I think when we looked at it several years ago, we were not projected to recover all of our money. So we increased the ticket tax by $1.25.
Yep, I do remember that discussion. So if I heard you correctly, we're not supplementing it now.
No.
The ticket price is covering the cost.
I mean, I know it's projected to cover by the time we get to 2031, which is when the bonds are paid off, we will be covering our cost. Because I know there were payments like that. There was a $1.5 million payment that we made when the stadium, I think, was built. So we were covering that cost, but over the life of the bonds, we are recovering that cost that was paid up front.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, are we going to ask questions as we go along, or we?
That's totally your purview. I'll recognize you if there's a question. I mean, I'd hate for you to lose your thought as they go along. So if you need to ask the question, just ask to be recognized.
Well, I know there's a lot of contractual services here. I just want to make sure I understand, because I'm looking off the top services contracts as vendors, and then I go to the contractual services on the second page, and some of the numbers aren't laid out to where the totals add up to what's on the front page. So I just want to make sure that as we move through these, that staff's able to guide us as to why those numbers may not match up. So that, and I'll give you an example of one, and that's the information technology services. I see a contractual agreement on the second page for $319,827. But if the IT on the front is a lot more than that, and I'm sure that it's probably because it's tied to the county. There's IT issues with the county, but we're only seeing 319 of it as a top contractual service.
So on the first slide, those are the top spending contracts of 2024, is my understanding. And so those would be with specific vendors, and those would be for specific agreements that we have as the unified government for specific services. The budgets that we're showing on the second page are going to be for multiple vendors or multiple departments. So on the first page, for instance, the inmate housing for Andrew County Sheriff's Office, that's $780,000 amount, $777,800. That's the first row. So that would be part of the housing of inmates budget of 1.348 that's on the second page on the county side. So that would come out of that budget, but I know that we have more than one vendor that we do business with as far as inmate housing and farm outs. So that would just be one vendor that would be included in the housing of inmates budget on the second page. So
I to understand, and thank you for that explanation. Top item, rent and lease of software. Is that not the part of the information technology services? Is that 319 included in that 4.2 million?
So are you referring to the bottom? No, all of these budgets on this slide are separate from each other. So none of the budgets on this slide are part of any other budget on this slide. So what you see on the top 15 contractual services budgets for the city general fund This is the top 15 spend categories that we have that we can identify as being thematically for like single purpose across the city general fund. And this makes up roughly 82% of the total contractual services budgets for the city for 2026. So these are 2026 numbers that we're showing on the slide for what we have budgeted.
Okay, thank you for that. The other example I want to talk about real quick, then I'll get off of it because there's a few more. But I'm looking at the telephone service for the city and telephone service for the county. And that adds up to roughly, just $1.5 million. But on the front page, AT&T Kansas, I vote for phone services, 956,000. Is the IT service different than phone service? On the two pages on the city and county don't add up to what's on the front page.
So Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director, I will just say that I know that we have more than one vendor for telephone services. The telephone services that are on the top 15 budgets for the city and the county, they include all of our budgets for for telephone across all of our departments. Again, if we have more specific questions, I think that there might be some departments here that could help. But I do know that, for instance, I believe our police department has a different vendor that they use for some of their services than technology uses for AT&T. So like different departments might have different contracts, and there's different subcomponents too. So some people, so the AT&T, there might be a different, I guess I can't speak too specifically, but I know that we pay for different things. We pay for like a main trunk line, we pay for data cards for computers, we pay for cell phones, we pay for fiber connections. There's a lot of things that come out of the telephone budget.
Well, I'm just trying to follow the numbers from the top contractual service. And I see AT&T Kansas, IT, shared phone services of 956,000. But if I go to the next page, telephone service for the county, telephone service for the city, that adds up to about roughly $1.5 million. And so it's 500, just shy of 600,000 difference. And I was just curious as to, if I add those up aggregately, I come up with that. But just trying to understand how you're presenting this to us. Not being critical, I just want to make sure I understand.
So on this is Michael Peterson again, on the top contracts, the AT&T contract that you see there, that would be our largest single telephone contract for that vendor for that service. So people use other forms of cell phones may or may not be part of this, depending on what department it is. There's other data. So the budget that you see on the second slide for the contractual services budgets for the city and the county, that's not all of our telephone budget. There are telephone budgets in other funds as well, but these are just the top expenses for the city and the county. And I know that there's more than one vendor and more than one contract that's in these lines. These are just the top cost drivers for the city and the county budgets. So the first page is the top vendors, the top contracts that we have. This page is the top budgets that we have that has more than one contract, more than one vendor in them, more than one department. And the contracts on the first page may be only for one department, such as the sheriff and inmate housing. Or in the case of AT&T, it could be across all of our funds. It could be across all of our departments.
So if I wanted to talk about consolidation of the services that are provided by a phone company, that would be a place to look, because if we have multiple services, I'm assuming that there are a number of contracts out, which each contract is an administration cost. And if we were to reduce that into maybe one contract, we could find some savings. I mean, that's what I'm trying to look at here, is where can we consolidate and find savings. But I don't mean to take up all the time. I'm just wanting to make sure I understand what I'm looking at here. And I appreciate you explaining it to me.
Mayor, could I just piggyback on that real quick? I mean, I would agree that if and I'm just going to use a household, right? If there's five in my house, and we all five have five different plans, I mean, you usually get a better deal if we're all on the same plan. So I'm not sure who oversees that kind of wrangling all of the departments together to use one phone service, because I would think, just like, it would be like us saying that we have five different insurance companies, right? We have one insurance company, or, for the whole UG, not 10 different ones. So I guess I'm kind of a little confused as to why we're not doing exactly what he had mentioned. And I'm not saying I know, I'm just asking, because that seems like an area that, the little things add up to eventually being big things. Thank you. Thanks.
So this is Alan Howe, Assistant County Administrator. Maybe add a little more to that. So there has been an effort over the past several years to bring like cell phone contracts, as an example, under one contract that is managed by information technology as opposed to different departments. There are, in some cases, sort of different, I'd say, operational needs or decisions that, so as AT&T, there's AT&T FirstNet, which is the first responder network that AT&T has built out separately. And then the police department has a cell phone contract that they use, and I'm totally blanking on the name of it. It's not AT&T. And they went through a open competitive process to select that, and selected it based on the particular needs for the department. And then there's hotspot kind of needs that are in cars. So I agree, and we've been working on sort of consolidating that and getting that under management, if you will, kind of as close to single management as we can. There are some instances where, it does make sense to have sort of different contracts for different needs.
Thank you, Commissioners. Real quick, there's 19 on page 2, top contracts. How many contracts are there in total? I mean, if you start going down that tree from page 2, I know you got the top 19. I guess that's the top 19. I know we're still looking at page 3, but if we can go back to page 2, there's 19 of those. And that totals 46 million. How many contracts total outside of those 19 are there? And if we were to take all contracts, those services, what would that total amount be on top of the 46 million? Do we know that?
We don't have a amount on how many contracts we have here today. That is something we'd have to go research, Mayor.
Well, I know you didn't bring it, but I know it's somewhere because you got the top 19. So you should have an idea of how many contracts are floating out there on behalf of the unified government. I know you came up with 46,000 just on the 19 that you picked up that are supposedly the top contracts. But if we were to look at all the contracts combined, what's that dollar amount? Do we know? And then I'll take it a step further. If we look at contracts by department or by units within departments, are there a trend there where some departments may be contracting more services than other departments? And then how does that align with staffing? Or if they're fully staffed, how does that align with workflow and work performance? I just don't know if we've ever looked at that in depth to see if there's some redundancy there, or maybe certain departments may be contracting services that might not align with expectation when you talk about workload. So it's kind of two questions in one. What's the total amount outside of that? If you take all contracts and then breaking it down by department, who contracts more services in the unified government, and who are those top departments? And then you take that down. Is it due to why? Is it due to staffing, Or is it something that maybe management needs looks at as far as work performance as a means to see if there can be, if we could find cost savings uh, in contracting? And I don't know. And then the third question is, and I've asked this before, is it would be nice to know when each one of these contracts falls off. And then what is under our procurement policies, what does that competitive bidding process look like? As far as are these services that process, are we getting the best bang for our buck when you talk about, and I know sometimes you get what you pay for, so, always the lowest bidder always isn't the best, depending on what type of services they provide. But it'd be interesting to see if we've done any type of research into these contracts, because I believe you gave a slide, I don't know if it's this week or the last week, that really showed that contractual services is a huge um, load as far as our finances on our general fund. So just something to throw out there. I just don't know, but would be nice if you were to, at least for tonight, if there was any way on any system computer that you may have, outside of that 46,000, what is that totality of dollars that we're spending on contractual services?
That would, like, to bring back, like, how many contracts we have, we would have to go do some research. That's not something we could bring up in this meeting.
Yeah, well, even not all the contracts, but the dollar amount would be nice. I mean, that you would, I see you have it here, just kind of, it'd be nice to just, I'm sure there's a database somewhere that if you were to, to hit a button, it should tabulate, a total amount that includes that $46,572,659. I just don't think that's ever been asked for. I'd like to see how much are we actually spending on contractual services? And then if we're auditing that, is where I'm going with this. Is that within best practice? So, thank you. Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I was just trying to circle back here about the whole parking lot lease thing. How is that? So we're still paying for that?
Yeah, Debbie Johnsher, Deputy CFO. Yes, it was a long-term contract. I believe it started, I'm trying to remember. We've had I think we're going into our third CPI increase. I'd have to pull it to see when it actually started, but every 5 years it was required to have a CPI increase, and then we pay that same amount annually for the next 5 years. But it expires, I believe, in 2031.
So, and this is for Casey Sporting?
The parking lot is for the sporting stadium, but Kansas Speedway owns the property. So they are leasing the property where the parking lots are to us.
And why are we leasing it?
That was an agreement, I think, that was made back when, I'm not sure where, I think they knew they needed a parking lot for the stadium.
Well, they should pay for it, not us.
Well, it is being paid back through the ticket tax that we receive from Sporting. Sporting charges $3.50 on every ticket sold, and that money comes back to the unified government.
So what happens when it's not, like, we're basically taking a bath on it?
We're projected to receive back all of our money by the time the bond's paid off in 2031.
And then some?
We were trying to get it exact.
Okay.
It may not be exact, but
So has there been where the ticket sales wasn't enough?
in the beginning, yeah, we were probably covering some of the cost because we made an upfront payment to Sporting of I think 1.5 million. in the beginning when the stadium was built. And then we also took out bonds to do the improvements to create the 2 parking lots. And that is what's paying off in 2031, I believe. And so we paid for those in advance, and we're making debt service payments out of the city general fund for those. And the ticket tax is going back to reimburse the general fund for those. We also make the lease payment out of the city general fund also.
Okay, so. All right, I just trying to figure out if we're in the business of taking a bath here, but, okay. Okay, thank you.
We are on track to recover all of the funds by 2031. We actually did just check that. It was probably a couple weeks ago we looked at it because we want to make sure that we're still on track. If there was any reason we would have to increase the ticket tax again, we'd want to give ourselves plenty of time to recoup that money. But currently, we are on track to receive back all of our money that we put in.
All right, thank you.
Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. I will just point out for these city costs, some of the top costs that you see on here, rent lease software. A lot of our systems are on annual maintenance agreements. That's the model now. Those are costs that are dictated to us by the contractual agreements with those companies. They typically exceed inflation in their cost increases. That's one of our faster growing categories of expenses, ATA, transit contract fees. That's one that we just had to add $950,000 to, which is only half of the cost of the route increase. So that's a significant increase in the 2026 budget. And again, the KCATA determines what the cost of the services that they're providing to us are. And we either choose to pay that rate or we don't receive the services. Insurance and notary costs, that's mainly our property and fleet insurance. And those have been increasing dramatically in excess of 10 to 15% a year for the last few years. So that is definitely a reason why the budget's growing. So some of these top expenses are costs that are outside of our control that are increasing faster than the inflationary index. So moving over to the county general fund, I'll point out that 3 of the top 4 items are specifically sheriff contractual items, inmate medical, housing of inmates, and the jail food service. Again, those are things that we're required to provide. I know that they do competitively bid those items. Those make up about 40% alone of our contractual services budget on the county general fund side, with inmate medical being over $6 million. Housing of inmates roughly 1.3, and then jail food service for adults at $1 million. There is additional food service for juveniles that didn't make this list. Rent lease software again is one of our top expenses, making up almost 10% of our budget on the county side of roughly $2 million. And that's what helps us to maintain the level of workforce that we have and be as productive as we are. Insurance and notary bonds, again, that's a cost that's increasing higher than what we would desire for inflation. That's again property and vehicle insurance primarily, and cyber insurance now has been added to that for both the city and the county, roughly $1 million. Emergency management radio contracts, those are our Motorola contract and the contract that we have with BPU to maintain our radios across all of our public safety, public works. I know Matt May has talked about that with us previously, so that's roughly $950,000. Autopsies, that's through the coroner's office. That just depends on what level of activity happens during the year. That's outside of our control. There is, again, like we have discussed in prior meetings, there's a flat rate that we pay to the coroner, and that might even be a separate line, and then per autopsy rate for that vendor. Telephone service is again one of our top costs, just repair and maintenance of our buildings. Legal costs through district court and some of our other departments is another big expense at $640,000. Fleet expenses, that's just how much it costs for us to maintain our fleet on the county side of the budget. That's roughly 600,000. Again, workforce development and employee training and travel. Another key part of that would be the public safety component of making sure that our public safety staff is trained. $400,000, temp agencies at 400,000, postage at 350, and then legal expenses at 300,000. And those top 15 expenditure areas make up $17.4 million of our county contractual services budget, county general fund contractual services budget, and that makes up roughly 79% of the expense. So it'd be very difficult for us to make budget reductions without touching some of these large expenditure areas on both of these funds. So moving forward, we were asked to provide a detail of what department is responsible for what when somebody calls something in as far as blight and beautification goes. So we've worked with departments to put together a list. So just to run through this, buildings and logistics is going to be the focal point of our efforts. So John Kelly is leading this group of this collaboration of departments to try to focus on this issue. So they are specifically in charge of trash removal from land bank lots, quick response trash tickets, code enforcement abatements, and UG facility mowing. Parks and Recreation specifically handles trash pickups and illegal dumping in parks. They have contracts for the greenscape medians, and then they also do cemetery and parks mowing and maintenance for cemeteries that no longer have active ownership. Public Works and Streets, they handle our hardscape medians and curbs, as well as our streets. And then illegal dumping on streets and alleyways. Neighborhood Resource Center, they manage our unfit property boarding, clearance and demolition for properties that need to be removed, and then code enforcement calls. Economic development is over the land bank mowing for land bank properties, and then public safety is joining in with camera monitoring and community policing, real-time crime center, and enforcement efforts to address blight and illegal dumping.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question on this page, or several, and good evening, Mr. Peterson. Is what you're showing here as it currently is or how it will be in the next year? This is how it was for 2025. I know the logistics taking over certain remediation tasks. I don't know if they've always done that all year. So this is shown the way it is now and expected to be in 2026. By category here, this is on page 4 that you just went over.
Yeah, Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. I believe that the desire was not to pull existing resources out of all the departments and merge them into one, but to keep each function within kind of its core functional area. And then John Kelly and the Buildings and Logistics team is going to serve as kind of the focal point to coordinate the efforts of these groups. So this is, I believe, this is how it's budgeted in the 2026 budget. And then John Kelly is the person who's going to be overseeing the coordination of all these efforts.
Okay, well, here's an example of questions I have and how this is going to be done in whose budget line. For instance, land bank mowing, it's shown here in economic development. So is mowing for land bank currently shown in economic development, or would that be money assigned to buildings and logistics based on who's actually going to do it?
So when we transitioned the mowing out of Parks. Economic Development was already managing the land bank. So they already have a division that manages the land bank properties. So that's where the mowing coordinator for those properties, as well as the funding for the contracts went.
Okay,
So they are overseeing the mowing for the land bank properties as well as monitoring those contracts.
okay.
And that is also, I will just mention, that specifically came up during the public hearing yesterday. One of the reasons why there was such a big increase in the economic development contractual services budget that somebody noticed in the budget document was because we had moved the money for those mowing contracts into their contractual services line, and it was not there previously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. I I don't know if, well, correct me, Mr. Peterson, this is currently kind of the model, currently what we're doing. Mr. Administrator, this is currently what we are doing to address blight and beautification.
Like Michael said, John Kelly is the coordinator, and actually starting on September 8th, John has assembled a team from Parks, Public Works, and his department. And every Monday, they will be picking out a different part of the community and will be attacking what is considered blight, trash, um, uh, foliage issues. And we'll be doing a day of attacking that in a certain area. And we'll be doing that on a Monday per week. And then the departments go about on Tuesday through Friday back to their department to do their regular responsibilities. And then back on Monday, they come together
Gotcha, gotcha.
to attack it.
That's a little bit more information that I was anticipating, because I was just, and I know we're doing something different, but I think the current way that we've been doing it has been really hard, because we all get requests, we send it out to staff, and then there's kind of this pinball action of, well, you take it, well, you take it, well, where is this? Well, whose responsibility is it? And then it just goes kind of weeks and weeks on end. So thank you for providing a little bit more context that there's going to be some focus there of interdepartmental activity. And just to want to make it very clear, we are to take our requests, the requests that we get and the requests that's going through 311 regarding blight, beautification, that is all funneled through buildings and logistics.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burns.
Last week, they did a wonderful job along K-32, picking up a lot of stuff. I was going west on it today. They're back at it. In one spot, there must have been 20 tires or more. And then there was trash all up and down, basically from 40th to 57th Street. So I don't know who we talked to John about it. Is that right?
And John is aware of it.
Is he?
And they will be back out there. There also is an enforcement piece that will become part of it. That once they get the enforcement piece, hopefully we'll slow that down where people are continually to dump. So, I mean, once they do clean up, we do have people coming back to continually dump right now.
Thanks for the information.
And I do have to, thank you, Commissioner Burns. I do have to kind of agree with some of our commissioners, and I do believe that streamlining this process to have a centralized point of reporting and a centralized point of how this is managed is a more efficient way to tackle this problem. Commissioner Davis described it quite well when he said right now it's just a ping ball effect of, of going from department to department, having things in one shop under one management team with all the resources and personnel to effectively tackle this issue, in my opinion, would be a more efficient way to effectively address blight and beautification, because even with this model, you still got 6 department heads, and as opposed to a single point of management oversight when each department head is actually in charge of their various departments, and based on, I guess my concern is based on what building and logistics or parks and recs or neighborhood resource, anyone of public safety might be doing based on their priorities at the time. It's still their resources. And so the question comes to bear as to if John Kelly asked and the police department has put their resources in other places, or land bank is mowing other areas that need attention, and how quickly can you efficiently garner up those resources to tackle areas that maybe John Kelly would see priority, but the priorities have already been predetermined for him by some of the other department heads. I question best practice when you talk about management. I just don't know if that's an efficient model. So I just ask that we continue to look at that. It is better than what it's been, but I just playing it by ear and hopefully modifying it and improve this as we go along should be the ultimate goal to get us to where we need to be. But I do appreciate the attention of staff at least making this a priority based on the request from the commission and our general public. So thank you.
Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. I will say that I have been part of meetings the last few weeks. I know that the groups are already meeting together, and there definitely is attention to the fact that this is something that needs to be addressed, and they are taking it seriously.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Just one quick request. If we can do some press release on this, I think it's very important for the community to know the ways in which we are thinking differently about this issue. And while I think we all can point to particular areas that we are aware of, it would also be really, really helpful for our community to know here's kind of the protocol, right? There may be some spots that staff has missed, some spots we have missed as commissioners. And so just to hear from those folks to say, these are some of the hot spots that we may not be aware of, it'll be really good to hear from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sorry, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. One other subset of this mowing and abatement situation, I want to make sure I understand who's going to do that. Other than land bank, I've had the occasion more frequently than I would like over the last couple of years to get requests for abatements to be done by privately held property. So when that is to be done, because the owners are non-responsive, is that falling under buildings and logistics?
Yes, we still have one abatement team, and that falls under John Kelly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So that leads us into the next part of the presentation. So these are responses on this next slide for optional additions to the budget that we heard during our 3 budget workshops for the various departments that came before us. So we tried to identify costs and proposals for your evaluation. So the top section of this list is for blight and illegal dumping, addressing blight and illegal dumping. One of the issues that we have, and one of the things that we want to make known too, is that by taking the existing crews and moving them to address illegal dumping 1 day a week, that will take away from their existing duties and their existing capacity for what they're doing at their normal functions. So these are just some options to add capacity to the unified government for addressing the issue. So just going down the list, we tried to categorize them for whether they would be city or county funded or outside funding and other funds. So the top two items are establishing a specific crew, a quick response trash team just to address illegal dumping or any other type of remediation that might come up at ad hoc request. So that would be managed by Buildings and Logistics. This is basically going back to the second abatement team, but then specifically targeting illegal dumping with that group primarily. The estimated personnel cost for that would be roughly $270,000. One-time equipment purchase, $475,000 for the equipment that would be needed for the team. We do believe that we've identified a funding mechanism through some rearrangement of debt to fund the equipment if we need to. If that's desired, we would have to identify funding somewhere for the ongoing cost of the group. Another item would be reestablishing biweekly mowing of land bank properties. That would be an additional $625,000 estimated cost. That would be on the county side of the budget. The land bank is a county function. We have frozen parks, horticultural, and groundkeepers that are help with mowing and beautification as part of this budget. So there's 5 positions here. For parks, for a horticulturalist, that's roughly $90,000 for each position. Roughly $90,000 for each groundskeeper as well. So if we wanted to add those back into the budget, we would need to identify offsetting resources for those. Transit routes, we've heard that there are issues with making sure that the transit routes are clean and maintained. So transit has said that they could use up to 4 positions to help address that. Those would be roughly $70,000 each. A piece of equipment that would be used by that team, basically trash compactor vehicle, would be roughly $140,000 if we wanted to stand up a team to devote to specifically the transit routes through the transit department. Streets maintenance staffing, again, that is just helps with any of the street, curbs, curbs, illegal dumping, potholes. I know Public Works is here. They can address this further, but we've frozen 17 of their positions. Also, that would be addressing infrastructure needs. That's roughly $90,000 a position. Cameras and license plate reader devices. We put in a request for $100,000. If we wanted to focus more on enforcement, that would allow us to identify individuals who are using certain corridors, and we could theoretically move those around to different hotspots as we determined that we needed to look at those. And then we put a preliminary figure for median hardscape weed control for spraying. That's another $100,000 if desired, and that would be an annual cost to prevent weeds from growing in the hardscape medians. So those are items for consideration. We also heard a desire to potentially add back in some frozen police officer and sheriff's deputies. Those are roughly $107,000 each. So the police officers would impact the city general fund. The sheriff's deputies would impact the county general fund. We would need to identify funding offsets for that. We know the infrastructure is a high priority. We currently have $5.7 million budgeted for pavement preservation across our cash budgets. None of that funding is currently budgeted in the city general fund. So we just left that blank. If there's the desire to add additional funding for street preservation, transit, we definitely heard that there's a desire to try to explore options for continuing the IRIS service as well as avoiding service reductions on our main transit routes. That'd be an estimated $890,000 we don't have built in for IRIS for a year, as well as $950,000 for fully funding our transit routes that's not currently in the budget.
And Commissioner Burns.
Explain to me, frozen parks mowing. If the ground's frozen, Why do we need to cut the grass?
So those are positions that we will not allow to be filled with our current budget constraints. So that's what it means that the positions are frozen. It means that the positions will not be filled with our current funding level.
Not frozen grass,
Not frozen grass.
okay?
No.
I was just wondering.
Yep. And then just some miscellaneous items at the bottom. We heard a desire for additional grant writing capacity. We've put in a budget split between city and county for that, roughly $140,000. 311 enhancements, that's the cost of, estimated cost of closing the feedback loop to the public. That's not built into the budget. That's roughly $250,000. And then if there's a desire to do no other option than to structurally balance the budget, we're currently unstructured at $1.1 million on the city side and $830,000 on the county side is what we're planning on using, budgeting use of reserves for in 2026. So these are just items for consideration that we've heard through the budget workshops previously for any changes that may, by consensus, want to be made to the commission's budget.
So,
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Thank you, and Commissioner Burrows.
thank you, Mayor. So the additional pavement preservation would be a 5.7 million, and it's budgeted. That's what I see.
So we left that number open if we wanted to add additional money to the city general fund for pavement preservation. That's what that number is for. But we currently do have $5.7 million spread across the dedicated sales tax and also our special street and highway fund for 20.
Iris for nearly 900,000 has there been a proposal to possibly raise the cost of Iris to lower the amount of money that we put in from the general fund? Do we know? Has that been proposed?
That, it hasn't been proposed that we know about, but we have had a discussion about funding it from, like, when we do bring fares back on the fixed routes.
Well, I know we in the KCATA are struggling with how we're going to pay for Iris. And it's, of course, the amount of money is a lot steeper than this. And I understand how important Iris is. I just want to be able to ensure that we can either strike a balance with both or find a way. We don't have paid fares yet, but we're still paying nearly $1 million that we want to put in to fully fund the fixed routes gap. And then we're going to add 900,000 for Iris. I don't know how much Iris brings in to help supplement that. And it's not that I'm anti-public transportation. It's just that when we're putting $900,000 into a program, I would hope there was some kind of a return on that investment that we are making as taxpayers to ensure that they're what I would consider skin in the game. The cost of Iris is being discussed collectively across the metropolitan area, but I was just kind of curious if that discussion had come up.
We do have Desiree Bush, our transit director, here to answer some of your questions.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, County Administration. My name is Desiree Bush, and I'm the Director of the Unified Government Transportation Department. To answer your question, yes, we can increase the fares for Iris. When we launched the service, we started with a intro price, or excuse me, intro fare of $3. And our goal was to increase it between $5 and $8 for that zone, for each zone. So just a flat fare. However, since we are not continuing the service as it stands because it's unfunded, I am looking at some various scenarios, so I will have to follow up on the cost recovery percentage for that program if we increase the fare.
So Desiree, if I understood what you're telling me, is that presently Iris is not funded.
Correct. I did submit a budget request. The total amount for that request was 800. Give me one moment. It was 889,000, roughly 889,000. And currently, as it stands, we have not identified funds within our budget to continue the service. It's still grant funded. Per our last meeting, I believe that was the last budget workshop I presented, it was last Thursday. I may have enough grant funds that will last through February, but I said may have enough. So,
I know it's quite a challenge because of the increased costs. And if the fees haven't been raised for a while, did you say you were going to raise them to $5 or to $8 and not an additional 5 or 8?
no, yeah, so between $5 and $8, yes,
Right.
per person each way.
And would that, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Davis. Just want to get some clarity here. What we are seeing on screen is currently not in the budget, correct?
So none of these items are in the budget. We will say we know that we have the capacity of 1 mil if that's desired on both sides. It's roughly $2 million, or we would have to find reductions other places to fund these items.
Gotcha. And just for the public that's aware, because I think some of this can be somewhat, I think people get curious as to why are we talking about additional options? We had previous budget meetings where some of these items came up and we said we wanted additional funding for officers. We wanted additional funding for deputies. We wanted additional funding for transit routes and things of that nature. That has come up from multiple grant writers. I know I talked about wanting a grant writer as well. And so I just wanted, for the folks that are watching, that's the context of what this is. But none of these items that are on screen are currently in the budget. Thank you.
Commissioner Hill has her hand raised.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Miss Monica. With this last slide that we've been looking at, will the positions on this last slide eliminate a substantial amount of temporary employment that you had on the slide before that one? So on both the county and the city side, it was over, well, I think the county was almost 400,000, and then on the city, it was still over 300,000. So I'm just wondering, in filling some of these positions that are not on the budget right now, would that eliminate some of the costs of the temporary employment, or is that something totally different?
So Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. I'll say based on my knowledge of where that's budgeted, the temporary employment services, I do not believe that any of these services are being offset by temp agencies. I think these are capacity building items. So if the positions are frozen and not filled, then that would just be manpower or staff time that we would not have to do those duties. And in the case of some of these, they are not currently filled and they have not been filled for some time. But if we wanted to see improvement in the services that were offered, then we're saying that it would take additional resources, or we would have to take away from other duties that these individuals are currently doing.
Okay, thank you. District 4, Evelyn Hill.
Next series of slides we're going to go through are options to fund the items that we just looked at, which are within our city and county general fund. So the first set of slides we're going to look at are combined city and county, and we're looking at discretionary funds. First two are buildings and logistics. we did just talk about adding to mowing, but this is actually if we wanted to fund some of those things on that screen to take away from some of the mowing within building and logistics, and then also taking funding away from annual testing and maintenance for life and health safety equipment. Um, and then also in the both budgets, we have capital for the city and the county general fund. So we have cash capital in the amount of almost $9 million in the city funds. And then on the county side, we have about $1.5 million. Then as far as equipment and capital, we have about $4.1 million on the city side. And on the county side, we have a little over $500,000. And then economic development wise with the land bank, we did just talk about adding money to the budget, but that is discretionary funding. So we did want to throw this out as something that could be cut if we wanted to fund some other things that we had just discussed on the prior slide. Um, Human Resources has employee appreciation awards, $14,000 in the city general fund and another $2,000 over in the county general fund. So that is a discretionary funding that we could also look at. Neighborhood Resource Center, property maintenance boarding, got a total of about $158,000 across the city and the county. Then one of our outside contributions that we make is to Wyandotte Economic Development. So there's money set for it across both the city and the county. Then just our security in our buildings, that is an option also. And then technology, just software maintenance would be an option on both the city and the county side.
Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Question, I think maybe more for the administrator. Under these discretionary programs, when we talk about outside contributions to Wyandotte Economic Development Council, I've always been under the understanding that our agreement with Wyandotte Economic Development was kind of a contractual relationship that they were providing for the unified government economic development services. I never looked at it as a gift.
Well, don't look at these as gifts. These are just discretionary services. You don't have to have that relationship with the EDC.
And if we didn't have that relationship with the EDC, the work that they do on our behalf to vet all the economic development projects that come into this community would need to come in-house
Exactly.
and be done by
The
people that we don't,
Chelsea's department.
people that don't exist today.
Or you'd have a smaller department under Chelsea, and that's the trade-off.
Just wanted
Just saying is,
to make that point because
exactly.
I think that requires some clarity. And I mean, they're doing work that we have asked them to do for us to vet these projects that come into the community. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor Townsend, District 1. Okay, on this slide, discretionary, I am confused, and I'm particularly confused about a couple of things here. I'll use an example, the lot mowing. What are we saying about discretionary programs here when on the previous page we identified 625,000 as the total cost to get us on a bi-monthly, twice monthly cutting cycle. So I'm confused here by what page 6 is telling me with the discretionary programs.
So here what we're saying about discretionary programs are that these are items that are available for us to reduce or fully do away with. We know we did talk about funding them up on prior screens, but we just wanted to put out there that there is the possibility to reduce those.
So these are again optional. So for instance, if we wanted to fund If there was not a desire to increase the mowing frequency or put additional resources into blight or beautification, and somebody in the commission decided that they wanted to fund more street preservation or they wanted to fund more patrol positions, that's the same funding source. So this is our existing funding for mowing. It's not, it's not mandated that we do this. And so we could reallocate those resources is why it's on this list.
Well, I guess what's throwing me is we only have, and for simplicity purpose, we're only at about, I don't know, 600,000 this year, 2025. That gets us one cut a month for land bank. That's all we have. So on slide number 5, we're talking about a desire that's not in the budget of adding from somewhere $625,000. That I get. We don't have that. It's not in the budget yet. So then what are we talking about with discretionary programs where we're talking about that same amount of money and possibly not doing it? That's what's throwing me off. We don't have anything to cut really. We've already got I'm just going to use the same number, 625,000. That gets us currently in the year 2025, one cycle cutting a month. So where's to go? I mean, from that, that's what I don't get, what 6 is trying to tell us. I get desiring another 625 to put it in 2026 on a twice a month, but I'm not following this.
So clearly there is the appetite to work on mowing more, and that's what we did cover on the prior screen.
Mhm.
But what we're saying here is that money is also discretionary. And if we weren't going to raise the amount of mowings that we were going to do,
Mhm.
that it is possibly we could cut those back only as an option. And we don't have to take the options to reduce them, but they're just discretionary optional funding that could be reduced if we needed to.
And I guess that's what's throwing me off. I hear you now, but it's not even there. I mean, we don't have $1 million right now. It's only 600 and some thousand currently in the budget anyway. So that's what was throwing me off about discretionary. Either we add the 625,000 or we don't. That's how I saw it. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sorry. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you. So if I'm looking at these, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, I apologize, committee. But I'm looking at the discretionary programs that we just discussed, the one we're about ready to discuss, in the 3 pages of discretionary programs. County funds, city funds combined adds up to, if my math serves me correctly, to $41,700,000. 18 on the front page. 18.6 on the front page, 20.5 on the second page, 2.5 on the third page. That adds up to about 41.7 of discretionary spending.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I know some of these programs are important and we're going to have much discussion over them. And I know the smaller agencies that $10,000 can be a lot of money for their programs. But at the same time, you know, it's discretionary, and we've talked about what we're obligated by statute, what we are mandated by ordinance and resolution. And then that's where these programs come in. And I know we made some cuts last year and then they were put back in. So as we go through these, there may be some questions, but I just wanted to make sure my math was right.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the next set of discretionary programs that we're looking at are for the city general fund only. And again, these are optional subtractions, and we could reduce or we could completely remove. So again, we have capital for street preservation, $5.6 million. Also in economic development, we had a couple different line items. We got the increased small business grant, market and housing study, consultants for redevelopment, and pre-approved building plans. And it's also over in the fire department. We have delayed fire station design and land acquisition, which is in debt for $1 million. And then also life skin wellness. And then neighborhood resource center, we have 3 different items: livable neighborhoods, for NBRs. We did add into the budget to bring this program back as far as add more funding to it at the amount where it would be fully funded at $220,000. Then property maintenance demolition at $220,000, and then livable neighborhoods neighborhood impact grants at $35,000. And then also, we have our senior citizen rebate program, which has been pretty popular with citizens at $600,000. And then also funding that we do provide to downtown shareholders, Willa Gill at $111,000. Then our police athletic league is $66,000. And then the funding that we do provide for the warming shelter, the amount of $24,000. And then there is a Parks and Recreation transfer that we do from the city general fund that amounts to $5 million, which funds a great portion of the Parks and Rec fund. And then our rezoning code at $50,000. And then also we do have delay design of the West Patrol that we do have within our debt for 2026 at $1 million. And then also police summer cadet program, doing away with that at $10,000. And then removing some supplies and things from a human services budget. And then we also do have the BPU pilot, reducing that from 10.9% to 9.9%. Making that adjustment would make us lose like $1.2 million in revenue, and that is something that is currently built into the budget. And then also our KCATA, which is a Kansas City Area Transit Authority contract. And then also our senior citizen pilot rebate programs.
Commissioner Kane has his hand raised.
Reggie, if you go back to that page, previous page. Commissioner Kane?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
When and I'm glad we went back because, you know, I get multiple complaints about the lot mowing. I also want to agree with Commissioner Bynum. The Wyandotte Economic Development Council has been nothing but helpful for us, you know, and it's a good tool. And then I don't want to do anything with or eliminate any of the UG security. And then I have a question, a couple of questions for staff. Do you guys have a budget if we went 1 mil up on the county and the city, and then 1.5 mil for the county and the city? And you have, and I mean, and the same thing for if you went it to 2 mils in the county and city, do you guys have that set up at all? In case you want to make some adjustments to the mill levy?
We do have 2 mills, like we could bring up on screen. And then we also do have what it looks like to go revenue neutral, and then also what it looks like for the assessed value, like getting the additional assessed value.
So this is Alan Howes, System Administrator. Commissioner Kane, I think maybe another answer would be the budget as introduced by the administrator had a 2 mil increase in it. The maximum mill levy that was set by the commission was 3 mils on the city and 3 mils on the county. So that leaves 1 additional mill beyond what was in the introduced budget. If there were items that you wanted to add, say from page 6 on those other ones back into the budget, you have that mill that is not part of the administrator's introduced budget. Now, because the maximum mill levy is 3, you can't go beyond 3 mills on the city and 3 mills on the county. You've got to stay within that cap. So that's where this kind of puts and takes list comes from, where the items that were
I'm
heard.
not saying,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not saying go to 3, I'm trying to go lower.
I believe you can always go lower, Commissioner.
And that's what
Just-
Mayor, that's what I'm asking. Do they have a plan for one and a half? I know they got one for 2, but do they have a plan for 1 or 1.5?
They don't have
You
one
don't
that
have
was
to answer
prepared.
that. Okay.
They don't have
but
one
I
that's
guess-
prepared. They had
Okay.
the 2, and they had the revenue neutral options there, and the what was presented. I don't believe they developed one for 1, but
All right, thank you, sir.
That's not saying they can't. Is that something you're wanting, Commissioner Kane?
I'm just thinking out loud, you know, that if it's 2, you know, is there something we could do with 1.5 on both? But, you know, we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. This is just something to think about.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stites?
Stites District 7. So as long as we're asking these, like Commissioner Kane just said, at 1 or 1.5 or, 3/4 of a mil or half a mil, or was it possible to look at 0 mil increase, but take the 2.3 that is organically coming with, and what that would look like? The 2.3 on the city and 2.3 on the county, because we're already going up 2.3 on each, the city and the county. Thank you.
Now, before we, this is a question for the administrator. Just to remind everybody, I'm hearing Commissioner Kane, and I'm looking at these lists, and thank you, staff, because these are some of the things that we have asked for, these options. Tomorrow, the administrator has asked me to approve on the agenda for you all to make a final. No, okay. Well, he's moved that, so, okay. But I'll let the administrator speak to that, because I know we had a lot of stuff tomorrow on tomorrow's agenda with the ceremony for our fallen officer that's kind of in between some of our meetings. But first question, Administrator, is to address that. The second question is, as this commission tries to make an informed decision on approval of a final 2026, what is the how far can they go? I believe you gave a date of October something was the drop dead date that they had to approve it. If you can talk to that, and because they might need more time to just go through this and study, ask more research from staff, and to get them to the point where they're ready to make an informed decision.
Well, I think we've looked at the realistic date, and when we looked at the calendar and all that, the absolute last date to pass a budget is going to be the last date of September, your regular meeting date of, I believe it's September 25th. To pass the budget without a threat of a veto. So that's the absolute deadline to have a passed budget. That's the date that a budget would have to be passed. Initially, when we started this budget process, we had scheduled to have this budget to be on the agenda for tomorrow night's meeting, but with the circumstance with our officer and with the candlelight vigil being scheduled for tomorrow night, it just wasn't feasible to have the planning and zoning meeting and the budget and the candlelight vigil to be on the same night. And so, since it was on my agenda, I pushed the budget action to be on the first September scheduled meeting, commission meeting, for the budget action. And then that means September is budget month. And that gives today's, I think, meeting a lot more meaningful for you to look at what the work is for the trade-offs. I think the challenge that Commissioner Bynum mentioned last night, take a hard look at some of the information that is being presented tonight, have meaningful discussion, own your decisions. We incorporate that in a final recommendation of yours, because the budget is yours now, and we package it for a final action next week. It's going to take us time to repackage whatever consensus you come up with from tonight into a final recommendation of yours for next Thursday, a week from Thursday, for your action. So I think that is a better process. So you're not rushed to make a decision, but you can ruminate on what information you get tonight and discuss. And if you want to schedule another special session because of what information you get, you can have a very wonderful holiday to think about this stuff. What a wonderful way to spend a 3-day weekend. But, you know, you're taking this job seriously. And you got to make a best informed decision for our taxpaying citizens and make the best informed decision for them. So that's why I took it off the agenda. It was on my agenda. I have that privilege. I did that because of the circumstance, but also I think in reality, we didn't want to have a time crunch.
Thank you, Administrator. So we're looking at September
4th.
4th at the earliest, and then September 25th as the latest. I believe he did throw in there basically saying a veto proof. It's the 25th to be able to overcome that. So that's where I came up with that October date. So you do have a huge window, basically all of September. If as we go along, I just really, my thing is always to do things right as opposed to right away. And this is a huge decision for our community. And some of us won't be back. And so we're actually making decisions that'll impact the next mayor and the next commission, along with our staff, and more importantly, a lot of our community members that we heard from last night. So I just, I encourage this commission to take as much time as you need getting to that September 25th date, so you can have all the information. If we need to have more budget hearings and more meetings, by all means, please let me know and the administrator know, so we can get you the numbers, get you the data, get you the presentations you need, answer all your questions. So by before we get to September 25th, you all are ready to go with whatever budget decisions that you're ready to make. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. I had sent this email to you and Administrator Johnston this afternoon, and I copied in Dr. Knieven and Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Peterson. And what I sent to you was that I wanted to ask if I might, at the onset of this discussion, request a straw poll be taken to see if we can gauge interest among us in a flat mill levy budget and go from there. In other words, if we know up front that we have some level of consensus for a flat mill levy, we could proceed from that vantage point. Also, I know it's more complicated than this due to increased personnel and benefits, but could we look at something as simple as, to each department head, your budget is the same as your 2025 budget, given the mandated increases that must occur. And I heard Commissioner Stites just bring up a flat mill levy. So I'm hearing different voices kind of talk about something other than the 2 mil proposed. And that's why I wanted to ask that we talk about that at the beginning of this conversation. This is all really good. And frankly, I think what you've given us are places where we could find the money to go with a flat mill levy. So I just wanted to bring that forward to the whole group in case we want to have that conversation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burns?
Thank you, Mayor. It might be my imagination. We've been talking budget since March, right? You know,
Actually, you all had a retreat back in January where we started.
well, yeah, thank you. I don't know why we're continuing to have more and more and more. I am all for transparency. I understand the situation that we have been involved with last month. I was a county clerk one time. I sympathize what she needs to do and the work she has to do to get the levies out from all of the 14 taxing entities or 15,
Oh, all right.
17. I think we ought to move this, get the approval, not till September 20. I think we ought to have it right around the 10th of September and call it good. You know, we can have all this information, and I'm not saying it's very helpful, I understand. But is this only the 11th budget workshop, or is this the 11th in August that we've had? No, seriously.
It is the 11th budget workshop, but we had to have had other meetings as far as like public hearings and
Well, I get that. So how many more do you think it was? How many more? Are we in the 20s now?
I think with the intent of like the public hearings and things like that, it's probably about 13 that we have had.
Monica, do you know a number?
I don't know off the top of my head.
And there were some that were carried over to next,
Well,
to the next week or so.
and I think it's also, we owe it to the staff too. You know, we continue to have them come in, you know, mostly in the evenings, you know, when they could be doing better things on that to answer any questions. And that's all well and good. But we need to cut these budget workshops down. And next year, I'm going to propose we only have 6 total for the whole year. We can get it done if you really want to get it done. So that's my spiel.
Are you saying that we won't stay here till midnight tonight?
Oh, I don't doubt that we will.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
Getting excited if you thought we were gonna get out of it.
it's ridiculous. And we're losing the public too. It's not fair to the public. They're probably wondering, why can't you make a decision? We're here to vote on policy and make decisions. And we need to make it in a very efficient way. And this just draws it on and on and on. So there's no reason we should be here till midnight, ever, for any reason. We shouldn't be here past 9 or 10 o'clock, ever. And, the public has told me, you're looking like fools up there. Because you can't get anything done because you can't either get it through your head, or you already know what you're going to vote on or cut or whatever. And I say we get to that point and get to that point quickly. If we're going to start cutting things out of this 26 budget, then we need to start right away and get it done. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis?
Real quick, I do think that we're somewhat close, and I don't want to take up too much time because I know there's more in this presentation. We've not had an in-depth discussion about our CIP. And if I'm not mistaken, when the fire department and Local 64 came and presented, my memory's a little foggy on this, but I think we wanted them to come back and talk about the results of that. And I do see quite a bit of request from fire. And so perhaps just throwing out an idea. Next Thursday, we have that discussion, and then that following week on the 10th or the 11th, my memory's a little foggy on what comes after, that second week in September, we can have a special session to adopt the budget. But I do think if we are looking at some cost savings, the two areas that we could look at, we have pretty healthy reserves on the city side, and then we have some capital projects that we may want to look at just deferring so that we can deliver some relief. I think that's going to be much harder on the county side, so I'd be interested to hear what my colleagues think. But those are kind of the ideas I can come up with to get us to some sort of compromise to move forward and get closer to no mill levy increase at the very least on the city side. We could go revenue neutral on the city side as well, but rather cutting something or dipping further into our reserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7. So what I was going to say is in response to Commissioner Burns, and I will somewhat agree, but if we would have right off the bat accepted the budget that was proposed, we would be at a 5.3 on the city and 5.3 on the county. If we're talking about 2 and 2 and the 2.3, right? But throughout this work and these conversations, we are now at a point where we're talking about potentially, we're just talking, that we may be at the no mill increase and just be at the 2.3 on the city and 2.3 on the county. Can we get through? I don't have any idea. Now, I would agree that it does get laborsome, and we've been here a long time, and when you work and, and I get it, staff's here a long time also. So it does take its toll on everyone. You get cranky at the end of the night, you're tired, you kind of lose focus as to what's going on. That affects us all, staff, us, and then you're expected to perform the next day at work, whatever that job may be. So I agree that I would like to, and I'm not saying that these aren't important. I guess what I'm trying to say is instead of us sitting here and reading line by line by line, it's presented to us. We got it. I mean, I can be done with this page. I'm not discrediting what you're doing, but we could probably speed this up and get there a little quicker, right? That's just what I'm trying to say without being rude or mean to anybody. I'm not trying to do that, but let's get to it, is I guess what I'm saying. Let's run through these. Let's get there. And then if we've got questions, we'll bring them up. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kane has his hand raised.
Okay, Commissioner King.
I agree with Commissioner Burns. We have put staff through the task to pull out the impossible. And for us to be there till midnight multiple times, to have a 5-hour deal last night. And you're right, you get punch drunk, we get agitated, and we need to get to the quick. So if we bring that up next week and then vote on it September 11th, whatever that is, I think we need to finalize it and get out of the way. And what we're doing tonight is not helping me a bit. I just want to, say, hey, staff, give us the bottom line number, whatever it is, give it to us next week, and then we need to figure it out, the commissioners as a whole. But anytime you're there past 10 or 11, the only time we were there that long was when we were working on the casino. And we've done multiple of these meetings till midnight, and I think that's flat ridiculous. I'm done.
Thank you, Commissioner. My ask of you, Commissioner Kane, is just think about what would help you get there. You did mention that with what you would need, because that's going to be a question I'm going to have for the commission. Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a question for staff. Could you share with me the COVID funds that might still, COVID or ARPA funds that might still be in anywhere in this budget If not, this will be the first year that we have a clean budget that doesn't have any of those funds tied to it. And that's going to give us a clear delineation moving into 27 specifically, which should expedite the budget process considerably. Because when I look back here and I see a fall off of $20 million in a program and moving forward and it's reduced, it looks like we've cut something out of the program. And what's happened is those dollars have been vacated from the federal side. Those were one-time dollars. But at the same time, in the budget, I see numbers going up substantially and then drop off, but then some of them continue to grow. Can you tell me what years specifically I'm looking at this book, and is it 2020, is it 21 that that COVID hit? Do we know, Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie Johnson, Deputy CFO. We received, I think, the first, the ARPA funding I think we received the first half in 2021, but we allocated it in the 2022 budget. Oh, CARES Act was the year before, CARES Act came in 2020.
CARES Act. And that was a short window. That was like a 3-month window.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember how much that was, Debbie?
About 37 million.
Yeah, thank you, because I think there was a total like 87 million that came through.
ARPA was 87, CARES was 37.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to look at the budget and find out because these numbers can be somewhat deceiving because a federal grant can come in and bump up that number, but also ARPA funds could be artificially inflating these numbers. And like in the health department, we see the health department being funded well, then all of a sudden it drops off. We know what happened there. We have an understanding of what happened there. But in other departments, we might see that influx coming in and we see it creeping up. And does it justify the $3-4 million increase over 2 or 3 years? What changed in that department? Was it the fact that we absorbed that temporary employee and made him full-time? That's what I think this will be the first time in moving forward into 26 budget that we will have clean, clear numbers within the budget.
There's no, when we first got the ARPA funding, we were allowed to do the calculation for revenue replacement, and that was to go back into and help supplement operating expenses. That was in the budget in 2022 and 2023.
But it had to be spent by 2025.
It had to be completely obligated by December 31st of 2024. We have done that. We have obligated all the funds, and now everything has to be spent by December 31st, 2026.
And if it's not spent, we recoup that money back and it goes back to the feds?
That's correct.
Okay. So
our plan is to spend the entire amount.
That's our plan, but we didn't do that initially because some of those projections didn't hit their mark. So we had monies left over from some of these departments. If I remember, the health department was sitting on a chunk of money and we ended up using it somewhere else.
Right. We reallocated some of those monies. And the reason some of that happened was they were originally allocated ARPA money, but then we found out that some of their expenses were going to be recouped by FEMA. And I think there was some stuff that the state took over. But we have reallocated all of the dollars that were not spent into other projects.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate that.
I guess I just want to ask Debbie, I don't believe we have any operational ARPA money.
No, there's not. The only
have-
only ARPA money left is in a grant fund.
Well, it's
not in the general funds.
It's in capital projects like Memorial Hall and the courthouse
Right.
program.
Correct.
So that's the only ARPA money we are using now, but no personnel, nothing on our things. We do have 1 or 2 grantees that still are operating, but they'll be exhausted by the end of the.
I think there's only 2 subrecipients that carry into 2026. The rest of them will be finished this year.
One other question, if I may. I asked about that 41 million that we were looking at on obligations. Are those monies presently in the budget?
Some of them they mostly are built within to the 2026 proposed budget. They're not in the 2020, not all of them are in the 2025 budget, but they are built into the 2026
Thank you.
proposed budget.
Last question I would have is the 2025 amended budget that we've seen through the budget presentation. How much money did we put into the amended budget? Could we get a total for that? I know I don't have my paper with me. I was trying to go through it through the budget process the other night. But could you share with us how much money we put into the amended budget that was presented to us? Because I believe 6 months ago, we were told we didn't have any. Then we have an amended budget that was presented. And then I'd like to know where those monies came from. It would be a benefit if we knew that if we underprojected sales tax growth, if we underprojected or overprojected in another fund, kind of help us, instead of having these spikes and these cliffs, that we find that linear line being more static as we go across.
Yes, we could definitely get you that.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I apologize, Reggie. I could go upstairs and grab my paperwork and run through it myself pretty quick. I'm just trying to think that, I know we had the amended budget presented yesterday for 2025. And if I remember, there was some increases and where that money may have come from all of a sudden. So, or where we may have found it. And I'm not trying to make accusations. I'm just stating if something happened, then we should know it moving forward as we work on this budget for 26. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank staff because what they produced for us tonight is what we've asked for and will be helpful in preparing the analysis to get to wherever we want to be in the best interest of serving, the community, notwithstanding the ceiling that was passed last night. So I appreciate this. One last thing so I can better understand what I'm looking at. You had on page 5, optional additions. Those are items for consideration that were shown here because throughout previous budgets, someone said, maybe like me, I'd like to see land bank mowing twice a month. So these are currently not in the budget, right? Okay. Pages those 6 through 8, they're categorized as discretionary programs. I guess they're in the budget, but meaning there's no obligation. That's not the word I want to say. When you're saying discretionary, what do you mean? These are in the budget though, currently?
They are in the budget, but there are things that we could do without within the budget.
Okay. Okay. That's all I need to know. One item in
They're
particular.
not
though-
mandated.
They're not mandated. Okay, that's a good way to look at it. On page 7, Parks and Rec City Transfer 5 million, what does that mean?
So from the city general fund, there is a transfer of $5 million that goes into the Consolidated Parks Fund. And it helps support the Consolidated Parks Fund.
Okay. So this is put into the city fund. I'm looking, this is all showing city funds.
And so it's a $5 million expense that goes out of the city general fund and goes into the Consolidated Parks Fund as revenue and allows them to have expand their expense budget. So they have more funding to fund programs that they offer.
Okay.
It's about 40% of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a question. Kind of goes in line with the budget, and this is a question. Your district just brought it up, just jogged my memory, and I don't know, I believe Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Bynum, and maybe you, Commissioner Townsend, might know, I don't know, but probably Commissioner Kane. Retired commissioner, past commissioner, Nathan Barnes met with me, and he had a question about, and I'm not sure, but he claims that at some point during his term over the first district, that with some of the agreements that were made out at Village West, that the Northeast was to get $500,000 allocated from whatever agreements or arrangements were made during that time of his tenure as a commissioner in the first district. And he's sure that the commission at that time voted for that. But his question to me is that he has not seen that money allocated in any budgets for the Northeast since he left. And so he had that question, and it just jogged my memory. When you talk about disinvestment in that area of town that has been disenfranchised, currently Commissioner Townsend's district, we're trying to revitalize and put some energy, not just there, but east of 635. I didn't know. And so one of the questions, I know you may not have it tonight, but if someone can just, I don't know if you can reach out to him, or if just maybe do some research as we go through this process. If that is the case, and that is factual, that there's money there that should be budgeted for some agreement from Village West, it just, I think that a lot of folks in the Northeast, including Mr. Barnes, would love to see that. Commissioner Townsend.
I've never heard of that. The only thing I can remember about the Village, if it's true, great. So you've already asked for that to be investigated. I've never heard that. I do recall when I first came on that the way the casino grant money was distributed was different. And it was by a committee, and this body merely approved it, reviewed it, and approved it. Then there was a cry to have each of us, each district, have a say in it. So that's the only pot of money that, and if that's the case, there should be a legal document that says, I would think there would be, that so much of this would come to a designated area. So
Yeah, that was a request from Mr. Barnes. Legal said they'll check into it. I hate to get sidetracked with that, but I didn't want to get too far ahead with because I know that he's going to press that issue at some point. I just want to make sure that if there are funds that were supposed to be allocated towards the Northeast, we just try and make sure that happens.
Commissioner Kane has his hand raised.
Commissioner King.
I wasn't the commissioner when they built the Legends, and off the top of my head, I can't remember that. And like you said, you've got legal checking into it, so that'd be great to get an answer.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Oh, I'm sorry,
No, but
Commissioner Stites.
I really didn't. When you brought that up, I leaned over to Commissioner Townsend and I said, I'm betting that it was the Hollywood Casino because the number adds up, 500,000. It just seems like that's probably what that discussion was from him. And, but we've already vetted it. It's going to get checked out. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So next slide are discretional programs for the county general fund. And we've got quite a few programs here, but they total up to $2.5 million. There was a request for sheriff's parity pay as far as the inception of sheriff's parity pay, as far as like the differences of comparing like what we would be at if we didn't have sheriff's parity pay. So on the screen, we have 3 different boxes. First box looks at Sheriff's Department starting in 2023 to 2026. If it did not have parity pay, the middle box looks at Sheriff's Department from 2023 to 2026 with parity pay. And then the bottom 2 lines is a breakout of the additional funding between non-parity pay and parity pay. So looking at 2023, we can see with parity pay for both the command staff and also deputies, the non-parity pay would be $8.6 million. In 2023, that compares to having parity pay in place. It's about $10.5 million. That difference there in 2023 was $2.4 million. And then in 2024, without parity pay, Sheriff's Department, the employees would have made $9.1 million. With the additional parity pay in 2024, it ends up being $11.3 million. And that's an additional 2.7 over non-parity. And then in 2025, Sheriff's Department employees would have been at 10 million. With parity pay, they jump up to 12 million. And then that difference is almost $3 million in 2025. And what we're estimating in 2026 is it'd be 10.3 million if there was no parity pay in place. And then with parity pay, it'd be 12.8 million. And that difference is $3 million.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you for, Townsend District 1, thank you for this information. The next question that I would have would be, these are, and this is more legal question, this is money not paid under a contract per se, is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
All right, thank you. Thank you for providing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stites.
So Stites District 7, so that was going to be, so that's why it's necessary to include the non-parity side of it, right? Because it's not, we're not contractually obligated, right? Because if not, we don't even need to talk about the, if non-parity was present, right? Or if parity, I should say, was present, right? But you're doing it because it's non-contractual and it could be something if we elected to reduce, right? So I get it, because initially when you were reading that, I'm going, well, man, why am I sitting here listening to, and this is just in my mind, why do I care about if we were non-parity, right? Because we're not, but it's because we're not contractually obligated. Thank you, I get it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
This particular slide looks at the county general fund, and it is a financial that we looked at last night. Two of these financials we did look at going revenue neutral, and then also the current proposed budget, an additional 2 mills. We had added a view for no mill adjustment, which is going with the assessed value. So that is the additional financials that are added here. And so to kind of start out again, we did talk about it plenty last night, but the 2026 budget for proposed budget for the county general fund has $83.7 million in revenues coming in. What we have in expenses built out is $94 million. The negative in structural imbalance is $10.3 million. If we were to go revenue neutral and kept the same amount of expenses, our fund balance would be $6.7 million to the negative, and we wouldn't be able to approve a budget. And you can see every year from 2027 to 2030, things just start to get worse. So there would, I mean, if we were going to go revenue neutral, we'd have to drop our expenses down to about $88 million at least to have have some type of fund balance so that we could approve a budget. The next financials are in the middle. This is with no mill adjustment, and this is recognizing our 7% increase in our excess value. So we'd have $88 million of revenue coming in 2023. Total expenses would be the same $94 million. We'd have a structural imbalance of $5.2 million. And with the assessed value of 7%, we still wouldn't be able to approve a budget. We'd have like a $1.6 million negative fund balance. And you can see that fund balance, I mean, it just goes into the hole continually each year. The budget that was proposed, that County Administrator Johnson presented on August the 7th, is the last financials there at the bottom of the page, and it does include 2 mills. We have additional revenue coming in of $93 million. We do have a structural imbalance of $833,000, but we do end with a fund balance of $2.8 million. And there's no place in the future where we wouldn't be able to approve a budget at this scenario. And the two above scenarios, that the key things about those is there would have to be some, if we were to go with those budgets, there'd have to be some type of personnel adjustments for us to approve a budget. So not saying that we couldn't approve a budget, but there'd have to be some type of personnel adjustments. So next slide is looking at the city general fund, and again we have the
Hey,
same
hey,
three.
Reggie, can you hang on a second? What'd you just say a second ago?
So the last thing I said about the county general fund was the first two financials. One is looking at us going revenue neutral, and one is looking at no mill increase, which would have our 7% assessed value increase. If we went with either of those scenarios, we would have to have some type of personnel adjustment.
Are you talking about layoffs?
Yes.
I don't like that idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7. But the middle one that we're just talking about, where Commissioner Kane was just saying, the no mill adjustment, does that reflect the 2.3?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And just to make sure everyone knows what the 2.3 is, that is the equivalency of the 7% assessed value increase. So city general fund, we have for 2026 a revenue neutral option. We have $174 million of revenues coming in, $182 million of expenses going out. We have a structural imbalance of $8.5 million. Fund balance would be $26 million. We'd have a reserve expenditure fund balance of 14%. If we look at the middle financials, this is where we have no mill adjustment, and we'd have the 7% increase in assessed value that we would claim. We'd have $177 million of revenues coming in, having $182 million of revenues going out. The structural imbalance does drop slightly to $5 million. Our fund balance would be $29 million, and we'd have about a 16% fund balance compared to our expenses. And I guess one of the things I did not point out about the revenue neutral option, in 2029 and 2030, we would not be able to approve a budget because we don't have fund balances in 2029 and 2030. So in 2029, we have $9.4 million negative fund balance. In 2030, we'd have a $24 million fund balance. And so dropping down to the middle option of no mill adjustment in 2026, although we would have a fund balance in 2026 and have a 16% fund balance, when we get out to 2030, we be negative fund balance wise of $5.1 million. So that would be something to definitely keep in mind. The last financials are the city general fund with the 2 mills that County Administrator Johnson presented on August the 7th. We have $181 million coming in 2026, and the same $182 million going out and expense wise in 2026. And we'd have a $1.1 million structural imbalance. Fund balance would be $33 million. And I think looking out into the future, going out from 2027 to 2030, we would always be able to approve a budget, but our fund balance would be dwindling a lot. We're going down from 18% to 7%. And one thing to keep in mind about the county general fund and the city general fund, you as a commission did commit to a policy to keep a 25% fund balance.
Thank you. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. It's been bothering me for a while to express the increased valuation percentage in mills. And I think I finally have figured out why it's bothering me so much to express a valuation increase in mills is because of the calculation formula. And if you express it in mills, and I'm not looking at you like you're the one doing it, then you're putting it on both sides of the math equation. It's taxable assessed valuation times the mill levy. And if you express it in mills, you're adding it. Anyway, it bothers me to contemplate expressing it in mills because that's one side of the equation that gets me to the tax revenue, and it belongs on the other side. So I just wanted to get that off my chest because it's been bothering me the whole time we've been talking about it that way. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7, see something positive came out of 11 budget meetings. Commissioner Bynum, she had an epiphany there. Okay, so and I'm not saying that I'm supporting this or advocating for this. I just have a question. So on the discretionary funding, that is about $41 million. If we were to just put a number, whatever that number could be, 50%. If we were to say we're going to cut 50% out of discretionary funding, not eliminate, but reduce it by 50%, that would increase by $20.5 million into our budget, right? Is that what I'm, and how would I be able to back my way into how much of that would be on the city side and how much would be on the county side? Is there a way to do that easily?
Reginald Lindsay, Unified Government Budget Director. So this particular slide right here, it's county only, and it totals is $2.5 million. And then this one right here is city only, and it totals of $20 million. And this one right here is city and county because it combined, it's programs that are funded both across the city and the county. And if you cut one, you'd have to kind of reduce the other one also. So it is a combination, but on the city side, it'd be $15 million, and then on the county side, it'd be $3 million.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And maybe it's in there and I just haven't seen it yet, but so revenues for 2026 in our proposed budget, is there any sales tax implications added for World Cup in our budget? We have the spending or what it's going to cost us, but I haven't seen, and I may have just not seen it or overlooked it, or I don't know, but what's the projection that sales tax will increase? Not only sales tax, TGT dollars, there's a substantial amount of money that could be an influx into our 2026 coffers.
So we do definitely have a tourism fund increase of, we did build in 10%, going from 8% to 10%. But as far as our sales tax, we did do a slight increase, but we're also looking at the possibility of like economy slowing down. So there's not a big increase for the World Cup.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. Why is the economy slowing down?
Oh, so we definitely have noticed like where our sales tax this year, when we started the budget process, like doing forecasting.
Like what's the numbers? What's the numbers on that?
You know the
Are you saying year to date from January to now?
So when we were doing it from January to June, we were comparing numbers to last year, and our sales tax year over year compared to 2024 to 2025, 2025's numbers were coming in lower.
Like how, I mean, a lot? I mean, it's hard to say when they're coming in lower. I mean, if it was $10, that's lower, but I mean.
I want to say at the time we were looking, they were coming in at about 1% to 2% lower.
So not substantially, right? Because I don't know what 1% or 2% is. I don't know, what's that number?
I can't remember right off the top of my head.
Okay, and I can appreciate that. I mean, obviously you can't have everything off the top of your head. Well, but I guess I don't understand why it is that I mean, if we were to look at, if the numbers are lower, they came in lower in 2025 from 2024, and we projected the same at that lower rate, why are we not adding into, sales tax dollars for World Cup? I mean, we're sure able to build in what it's going to cost us. I guess it sure makes a difference on how we could look at this budget if we're maybe projecting a $10 million increase in sales tax dollars or TGT dollars. And I'm just saying 10 million. I don't know what it could be. It could be 5 million.
So, I mean, one of the ways we were able to build in for like the TGT, we did keep sales tax constant, but we did raise the percentage. So we were able to take that number up from the percentage amount raising. But just as we weren't really comfortable with taking up sales tax a whole lot because, I mean, we were seeing sales tax slow down over time. And so we weren't comfortable with jacking that number up a whole lot. And the World Cup, one of the things we do know about it is that it's going to be for about a month and a half to 2 months. And we don't really know what that impact would be for those sales tax for that 1.5 to 2 months.
Oh, sorry. Do we not, is there not any type of historical data from other cities or other locations that have done this to see that? Is there not just some, I know that's other countries, right? It's not ours, and there's probably too many variables in that. But I would think that there ought to be just me, I would think that there is a number that you could plug in comfortably to say that this is what we would expect. We expect there to be X amount of people that stay in our hotels, right, over that month period. And the TGT is at whatever. And I know there's a discussion of us even raising the transient guest tax during that period, right? So it's a variable that's out there that could have pretty substantial impacts on the way we view our budget is what I'm trying to get at. But thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrows. Commissioner Bynum then, bro.
I was just going to say, we did vote Monday night in Administration and Human Services to increase transient guest tax starting January 1, but no sunset, because it had a 1-year time frame on it that had been proposed to us, and we removed that. And we changed it from 8 to, we voted to bring to you all a change from 8% to 12%. So that's substantial. And that's transient guest tax. So that's going to go into that fund, which has certain uses. But to your point, some of those uses are going to include economic development around tourism and things like that. So we anticipate that revenue will increase, and we'll have certain uses that could be beneficial across the board, such as parks improvements, because that could be a tourism item. And I don't want to speak out of turn. That's coming to an agenda for full commission discussion and vote soon. I just want to
follow up on that, Mayor.
I just wanted to.
All right. And I know we'll have more of a discussion, obviously, about it. But why January? And then why no sunset? If we're talking about it's only 6 weeks, and now we're going to burden every single person that comes into our county with, a 4% increase on TGT. You're pricing people out of being able to stay in the hotels, right? And I think 12% is the most you can go. that's capped out. You can't go any higher up.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think that information was presented to us, but part of the reason why is because tourism continues to grow. We're the number one tourism location in the state, according to everyone who says that. We have more hotels coming. These are arenas that don't seem to be slowing. And the influx that we can already see of short-term rentals in prep for the World Cup, but those will probably stay in place long after. And the question I was asking Monday night was, regardless of if those VRBOs or Airbnbs come to us and get the proper permitting, they're going to exist. And if they advertise on the VRBO or Airbnb websites, then they must collect and remit the transient guest tax. So I've never heard that 12 is the cap, Commissioner. If you want to just jump in, because I don't think we heard 12 as a cap, but go ahead.
No, we had council do some research on this, and there is no cap. Olathe went from 6 to 9%. Lawrence went from, I believe, 6 to 8% for their TGT rate. We also have to keep in mind we have tourism-related infrastructure that if we do not find funding to maintain, to repair, it has to come from somewhere. Right? You have the Rock Island Bridge, for example, that is going to be not only expensive to get up and running, but it's going to be expensive to maintain. And so if there's an interest to use property tax dollars to maintain it, we can do that. If there's an interest to use the general fund dollars, right, for sales tax, we can do that. I think it makes sense to use tourism revenue to sustain and repair and maintain tourism-related infrastructure. So don't want to get too, I mean, that is going to come up. But there was a logic and there was careful reasoning behind that increase.
Thank you.
So is legal saying that there is not a cap? Is that what you're saying, Angie?
I am going to ask Wendy Green to come forward. She did all the research.
And I know we could do this and I know we're getting off track, and I apologize. Because I had thought that there was a cap.
This is Wendy Green, Deputy Chief Counsel. The state statute sets the cap at 2%, but it is a non-uniform statute that we chartered out of. So we can set our own cap. Yeah, but we chartered out of it.
Ordered out of it.
Correct.
Okay, well then, so we're both right.
There you go.
I guess the only concern I would have, because Reggie's indicating, and I don't know where that data comes from, we are the #1 tourist attraction in the great state of Kansas, which I know we're all proud of. I know that we hope that things will continue to come online and expand our tax base, especially hotels and things that will lend to the guest tax. But if sales tax revenues are going down because, according to our budget director, he's showing a slowdown in our economy, I guess I'm a little confused as to that. And then if you're maxing out at 12%, I don't know if we've done any research, and maybe this is something for your committee, and I'm not saying I'm against it at all. Trust me, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just the research that I would like to see is how do we compare to other municipalities with their, Commissioner Davis talked about others raise it, but is there anyone else at 12%?
But they're close. Mission, there are several that are very close. And it's coming to full commission based on whatever the schedule is for standing committee items to come to full commission. That might be next week.
Okay.
So we can talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Administrator.
Commissioner Stites asked a very interesting question about why didn't we budget far more sales tax revenue because of the World Cup? Kansas City has not hosted any event of this magnitude ever before. And actually, when something like this happens for the first time, you have no track record of hosting anything. And in the budgeting world, you tend to budget very conservatively, and therefore you budget like you never hosted anything like this before. And so the conservative way of budgeting is you don't put anything extra because you don't know what to expect. If this is something like you host every 4 years and you have a track record, you can then rest on some past data that you can then, hey, the last 4 times we hosted these things, we can average out a certain amount of return and then inject a certain increase for something like this. We don't have that track record. So the conservative, safe approach is put in what we normally put in, and when we get more money in our data for 27, we'll act on that for the next budget year. So that's usually the traditional budget practice that you usually take in a special circumstance like we're finding ourselves here, because we don't know how to budget for something like this. And we don't want to over budget revenue and find out that we over budget and then we incorporated that money to overspend currently. And then we have to somehow adjust backwards because we overspent. So it's better to act conservatively on the front end than to react because we overspent, because we over budgeted.
Maybe when time comes, we ought to, on the gas tax, settle on 11.99. Sounds better than 12. I made my speech, you made yours.
Thank you. Reggie, I have a question. I have one question. I'm looking at this goes back to my 2025 amended question. I'm looking at, well, you had it up there a few minutes ago, back to your county general fund and the city general fund. When we were talking about the 2.3 and then the 4.3 versus revenue neutral. Go on to the back pages. It's the last pages, Reggie. There we go. Thank you. The 2025 amended, I'm sitting here looking at that on the county side. That's what you have up there. I see we have where it says personnel, we went up from 57 and 25 proposed to 62. That's a 5 million increase in personnel. I'm assuming that was the pay raises that was put into place, as well as benefit replenishment. Did that come out of ending balance?
So Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director. So one of the things that we found when we were looking at the 2025 budget and the year-end 2024 actuals was that we were under budgeted for our personnel costs, and we were hiring more positions than what we anticipated. We also were not able to cut all the overtime that we had cut in the revenue neutral budget. And so basically, to fund our current staffing level, we had to increase the budget, knowing that we were going to incur that expense unless something changed. So to maintain our current staffing levels and to maintain our current levels of service, we had to increase the budget to meet our cost. And that came, basically, that's the primary difference between a balanced budget in the original budget and a $3.6 million deficit in the amended budget, because we did not have significant additional resources to put against that increase in personnel. So that's one of the reasons why we made the significant change of freezing or removing a substantial number of positions from the position inventory so that we could make sure that our budget was funded fully going into next year. So basically, the current positions that are filled are what we anticipate being filled are what's budgeted for 2026. So we will not be able to make substantial changes to our budgets going forward without actually removing filled positions.
Okay, I don't know if that.
So basically, the difference is personnel costs. We are spending more than what we thought we would, and it's coming from fund balance.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Did it come from the fund balance? And it did. And but it only looks like it took a million from the fund balance. because the fund balance is only $1 million less the next year, or I'm sorry, $1 million less than what was proposed in the original budget. So we're talking 1.2 million. Where did the other money come from?
So again, Michael Peterson, Deputy Budget Director, on the 25 original budget, that is a snapshot in time. That is based off of our 24, but that 25 original budget, sorry, the 25 original budget is a snapshot in time. That's what you would see in the budget document if you looked at the budget document last year. That assumes that everything we thought was going to happen in 24 happens. So basically what happened in 24 was that we had less spending into our fund balance than what we thought we would. So we brought in, I can't say the exact numbers, but basically if we thought that we were going to end at $6 or $5 million, we actually ended at $7 million. And so that carries into the amended budget.
Got it? Understand that part. This goes back to my question I asked earlier. When we amended the budget in 2025, moving into 2026, those dollars are important to know where they came from, so that when we go, because you carry the $2 million all the way through on personnel, and I'm assuming that most of that is the pay raises that we approved last year. So if that assumption is wrong, please clarify that. But there was additional dollars because I see 4.5 million in total expenses. You take the 3.57 and pull $1 million from the 4.4 that was there, that gives you the 3.649 that we have there. And so I'm just trying to extrapolate where the extra dollars come from that came into the budget process. So when you amend a budget, you have to have money coming from somewhere, whether it's savings and overtime, as you stated, loss of personnel, those dollars go back in. That's something we can look at later. It was a question I asked earlier, but that's an example of what I'm looking for in moving forward with that's the revenue neutral budget. And when we move up further, it's the same numbers throughout that category, so it won't be hard for us to figure out in the city and the county side.
We can try to provide a reconciliation of how we ended 24 compared to what we budgeted. I know that part of it was that we had additional revenue replacement funding that we put into the county general fund that we had not planned on doing. And so that's one reason why we have more funding in the fund balance despite the higher deficit. So actually the math on this chart, if you want to compare the 3.6 million and the ending fund balance for the amended budget, it would be the 7.2 million in the 2024 estimate with the net change in fund balance of minus 3.6 million, and that gets to the 3.6 million.
Right.
Yeah.
I can follow that.
Yeah, we can get the differences in the amended budget.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes, sir. You said, you mentioned something, we're spending more. What department's spending more?
So one of the more substantial things we had to build back in was sheriff overtime. So we did cut almost, I want to say $1.4 million from sheriff overtime, but we really couldn't do that because they're contractually obligated to staff the jail. And so that was one of the things that was built into the revenue neutral budget. We also built in an additional $700,000 of vacancies, and we've actually hired more positions, not less. And so we swung the other direction, and that's across the entire UG. That's not any one department. So there are just things that we used to try to balance the revenue neutral budget when we weren't revenue neutral last year that we were not able to achieve, that we had to build back in as a new baseline for 2025 amended going into 2026, unless we reduce services and lay off positions.
Okay. It just seems like there was another department that we talked about a while back that was
Well, I'm talking about the county side of the budget specifically.
Well, but it all falls together though, regardless. I mean, you county, city and split it, but at the end of the day. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stites.
Stites District 7. So I think that's part of my frustration when we did the revenue neutral and then we set a budget that we knew wasn't attainable. I mean, you can't cut out overtime. But that was our easy to go to. We're going to cut out overtime instead of doing the dive into the budget. And that we voted on it, right? It's not your fault. But we didn't do what I thought that we were going to do when we said we were going to go revenue neutral. And that was to look at how do we cut some places to get to that number. Instead, we threw out, well, police cut overtime, fire cut overtime, and sheriff cut overtime. And knowing that, did any of those come in at the projections that you put out for 2025? Or have they up until now?
Fire definitely did do a good job.
I don't mean a good job. I'm being.
I mean, they greatly reduced they were able to greatly reduce their overtime. Fire department was.
Did they meet what your expectations?
They didn't
Revenue
fully meet
neutral.
the expectations, but I think they probably about 95 to 97% met the expectations. So I mean, they definitely took the overtime from about around $3 million range to like $300,000 to $400,000
And
range.
I'm not looking for the exact number. I get, well, but it just, I was hoping that when we went revenue neutral, I know that revenue neutral is not sustainable year after year. We can't do it, right? But we didn't do, in my opinion, what we, yeah, I did say it, David, that I don't think that revenue neutral. I heard what you said. So, and then I'm on tape being recorded, which probably just solidified my way of voting. But so that was my expectation, that we did a little bit deeper of a dive into the budget and try to get there. And I know, and it's not your all's fault, it's ours, because we didn't require that to happen. Thank you.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Stites. I think one of the things with revenue neutral that I asked for that should have occurred and didn't occur, at least to my satisfaction, was a workload and staff assessment. And I know our HR director, she mentioned it to some of us, that is something that really needs to occur to make sure that we are right-sized appropriately. Then also a forensic audit of this unified government to make sure that we find instances of any fraud, waste, and abuse. I reject anybody that says it doesn't exist, because we found it with the Robert Bob audit, and that wasn't even a hard audit. It was just a soft audit. They weren't here very long, and they found various questionable financials. And they also sounded the alarm on us really going in the red in 2026 and 27. And I'm glad they did, because our new administrator and our staff caught it, and they pushed this out to about 2030. There is still red there. And they also caught the $23 million of, and I keep saying that, of purchasing card purchases that no one even talked about. So when you talk about audits and making sure that we're assessing our organization and our staff and our workload, I think that is something that needs to occur, and that's something that should have occurred during that year that we were revenue neutral this year and going into it, to get us here to a budget. So there could have been a more profound recommendation to this commission on areas where there could have been some cost-saving recommendations from any consultant firm that was out there, that I always say should be independent, unaffiliated, and unassociated with anybody here in Wyandotte County. And that's just my own personal belief. So thank you, Commissioner Stites, and I agree with you. Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Mayor. Spent many, many years in the court system. And if there's any hint of any abuse or fraud, in this government, my recommendation is you take it to the proper authorities, or else quiet your comments about it unless you have demonstrative evidence. It's not fair. And name names.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Commissioner Burns. That's exactly what I did. I turned it over to KBI and our district attorney, and they investigated it. So I totally agree with that. And so whenever there's instances of that, trust me, my background in law enforcement, I'm going to always turn it over to authorities because nobody's going to say that I sat on something that was questionable or where I thought maybe there was some reasonable suspicion of things that needed to be looked into by the authorities. That is something I aspire to. I did it on the police department with officers that were doing questionable things. I came over here and I made a commitment that you don't have to be the police. I mean, we're dealing with people, and I learned in internal affairs real quick that people are just people, and this is government. And I can tell you just in my experience of working with government, there's always going to be at all levels, and not just here. You've seen it and you've heard the news stories everywhere across this nation and including all the way up to the federal government. There's always some level of fraud, waste, and abuse. That's just the nature of human beings because none of us are perfect. It's the nature of government. And the role of us as legitimate leaders is to make sure that we vet that, mitigate that. And if we find it, we face it, we fix it, and we put measures in place to make sure those types of things don't happen, or at least minimize those that may have a desire to do things that are nefarious, to discourage them from doing so. So I agree with you.
Memory, what happened then? What were the findings with the KBI?
I can share that with you. That's in the past. I brought that up as the need to have it, but trust me, I have, that got over to the DA. Talk to our district attorney. He can tell you more about that than I can. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. Two things. I appreciate all of this and I appreciate the discussion tonight. I sincerely do. What I'm wondering as a commission is, what do we want to do to move forward to get to a budget, hopefully next week? What do we want to do with this? I heard a lot of discussion about, potential discretionary funding. I kind of like the notion of like, what if we just sliced all the discretionary money in half, or maybe not quite that broad, but that's a starting place, that gets us to a better budget that we can live with. What do we want to do as a group to get to a budget that we can agree to adopt a week from today? Like, do we need to have a meeting Monday or I want us to talk about that. And this is really interesting.
Yeah, we haven't got to that.
About this too, and I'd like to know who compiled it because it looks like it's all perks related stuff.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But that's a good I was going to follow up, and as soon as they were done with their impression in that, to see where we needed to be as far as the commission. Commissioner Kane, if you're still there, you brought up the thought of, I believe it's 1%.
1 mil.
1 mil as opposed to the max. Commissioner Stites has brought up no meals at all. And I think Commissioner Bynum had brought up a recommendation as well. So I think for our administrator and even myself, as we look at the agenda, the administrator outlined your short term of next week, long term of September 25th. I guess we need to have a discussion now. And going back, Reggie, if you can go back to slide 7 for me, I believe it is.
On Monday, so it's Labor Day.
No, not slide 7. I'm sorry. Yeah, Monday's a holiday, so you can't do that. Slide 7, starting there. If you can go back to slide 7. Slide 7 and 8. And I believe I'm missing some slides as far as but just for the sake of the conversation, we went through these, our staff went through these, but again, I believe that Commissioner Bynum asked for this along with Commissioner Townsend and myself. And I apologize if I missed some commissioners. Staff has delivered everything we've asked them to do, probably more so than they've done in the past. And so when you talk about discretionary programs, is there anything there so staff can know to get to things that you all are willing to have a conversation about, maybe you want to exclude from the 2026 budget?
Mayor,
Commissioner Bynum?
I just, in the budget, we had the million for planning for fire and the million for planning for police. And I think those were on the capital side.
It's on debt, yes.
So I don't know what that gets us if we were to push that off another year. Just wanted to ask that question.
And that's a good question because Commissioner Davis also brought that up. Our CMIP, what does that look like in those capital projects? How much are we projected to spend in 2026? And is it something that maybe this commission needs to look at according to Commissioner Bynum's recommendation that we push those projects out as a means to find ways to save?
What we
money.
had programmed for the CIP is a cap at $10 million. Because of the discussion that we had when we had the debt discussion. And that was going to be a $10 million cap for the next couple years.
What is that? I guess the question is how much of that is being budgeted and what are those projects and how many have been secured past the point of no return? What's available for this commission to be able to look at and say, let's forego that for now, save that money and push it off to a later date based on, I guess.
We'll email you that tomorrow.
Is that, so here's where we're at. So we CMIPs, we've got discretionary programs. I know I'm missing some, I think, but Commissioner Burrows had brought up some as well that through this slide presentation. Commissioner Davis.
I do want to bring up, we did a few months ago talk about management and Local 64 bringing us some sort of kind of joint whatever. And at the time, we didn't have the budget. Now we have the budget. It would be good to have a follow-up. And I think just including that in a general CIP conversation would be very helpful to see where things need to go. And if there are some delays or some cuts that, you know, for this year on capital cost or other things that could lead to a tax cut.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kane has his hand raised.
Commissioner Kane?
David, what do you, now I'm going to write, because I've said this 1,000 times. It's not what you want. What do you need to make the budget work? Tell us.
Well, what we presented in the budget is we were following your priorities and trying to be a fair and just employer at the same time. So what we presented here today is trying to, again, meet your request. You wanted something less than what we heard from the consensus of you and your colleagues was you wanted to see if you could get less than the 2 mills. And it's now your budget. You have to give us some sort of direction to help us craft a budget that's to your liking, that you guys will pass. We gave you a lot of information of our budget process that got us to the 2 mill budget. Remember, I started with a recommendation of a 5 mill cap. You said, as a commission, no, that's too high. That got us to that 3 mill cap. And I committed I'll bring something to you below that, which I did. And you are voicing something now you'd like to see if we can get something less. Well, okay, we need help on that. Because what we have heard just this year, some of the reduced services that we've had to provide because of the revenue neutral budget, you're hearing from your citizens, that they're complaining about the reduced services, whether it's mowing, whether it's street preservation, whatever. Well, we need resources to restore that. And as we look into the next fiscal year, we also need to be the fair, just employer to give cost of living adjustments. We have to meet the inflationary costs that come every year and try to restore some of the cut service levels that we did cut for the revenue neutral budgets. Well, that needs resources. And we felt as staff, we did that with that 2 mil increase. Well, okay,
Okay,
that's
So-
what we did. So if you want something less, we need direction on what less you want. Now, I'm also going to give you a caution. The county budget is very precarious. I would caution you not to touch the budget of the county. Because as you saw with the 2 mil increase, the reserve is projected to be just under 3%.
okay, I got it. After thinking about this, I think that the 2 mills in both is the best way to go. We have stretched you guys from one end of the city to the other. And I want more services. And if we do any much more deep diving, we're already got people upset with what we're doing, and they're going to be a hell of a lot more upset if we cut even more. So I'm thinking we need to follow your recommendation. Thank you.
Well, but I'll be honest with you. I think it's very refreshing of what you're going through. You have not, this is my third budget round with you, and you've not been in depth with, as you have been this year in the last 2 budget rounds. And I think you have found it refreshing to see what the departments actually do, and seeing it not just on paper, but from their words, and also equating it to what services they actually provide. And so I think probably, I hope it was refreshing for you to hear that and to see that. It's just also unfortunate that we have these financial challenges that we are facing. Because I know we would love to do more, but we are financially challenged to do more. And, you know, and I've said at the start of our budget process months ago, you know, we hear the frustrations of our citizens, but we also hear the same out of the other side of the mouth. We want better streets. We want better services. We want this and that. But we also hear, man, it's tough for us to live within our means. And so it's a delicate balance that we're trying to provide here. So I just, you know, and you're, you know, I have 11 people that have to make a decision, and we're trying to provide you the best information possible to help with that.
Thank you, Administrator. Thank you, Commissioner Kane. And I think to follow with the Administrator, what's really key to this, if you look at those charts, 2030, that's kind of an area that future mayors and commissioners are going to have to look at. Even with raising taxes, if you look at the projected, you're still in the red. We've got to really look at being aggressive with economic development here in Kansas City, Kansas, expanding our tax base. That is the real only way to avoid that 2030. There's got to be some policy changes, and I appreciate, again, Commissioner Burrows and Stites working on that with staff, but we have really got to be aggressive at looking at our policies and looking at ways to expand economic development and investment and housing stock in Wyandotte County. That picture is not going to get any better, and continue to raise year after years of compounding taxes on our taxpayers to me is not a sustainable option. And at some point, I know we want to protect our employees, but I can tell you, unless we do something, in the end, our employees are going to be the personnel are going to be the one to take the brunt of having to deal with layoffs at some point. And I was one of those employees, and I'm trying really hard to protect our employees by sounding the alarm. We've got to do something different than what we've been doing here at the unified government. Our employees are going to suffer. And if our employees suffer, services definitely are going to go down. And if services go down, taxes go up, this community is really going to have a bleak outlook moving forward. And I just don't want that for Wyandotte County. So Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to get back to kind of Commissioner Bynum's suggestion, recommendation about going from here, can we pick a date by which we come back and decide what we're going to leave in or whatever the mill rate adjustment is going to be? I think that would just be kind of helpful for guidance. I guess we have one more sheet of presentation at the back for tonight. This is a lot of good information, a lot of good approach, but I think we need time to look over it and decide what changes we might want to make and how that equates to the mill.
Okay. Commissioner Kane, if you're still there, are you still wanting to look at the 1 mill?
No, I think we need to
okay.
stick with what David's recommendation. After I've watched all this stuff and listened to everybody, and you're right, the last thing I want to do is lay off employees. I've been laid off indefinitely before. So I think I just assume stick with staff's recommendation.
Okay. Commissioner Lopez, is there anything you would like to see staff or the administrator work on for a further meeting? Your mic.
There we go. I think we should really look at each department's expenditures, what they're doing, because there's some waste. I've seen some already that we just really keep an eye on some stuff. Definitely. So I'd like to see that done, you know, really kind of deep dive and not just, you know, and it's a little stuff that adds up, and it adds up big time. So I'd like to see that done. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Bynum, same question.
Mayor, I'm gonna have to look more at what we've been given tonight. I've got some check marks by some things, none of which makes me happy. You know, again, if we're gonna go flat mill or revenue neutral or 1 mill, it's gonna be painful again. But I don't know where my mind yet cuts would take place.
Okay. So
I will say this, I'm sorry. I would like, if at all possible, to maintain any and all dollars for street preservation. I'll just say that, because boy, do we need it.
thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrows.
Well, first of all, I really agree with David on our responsibilities are to put forward a budget that's been accepted by the full commission. We can all differ on how we get there. But the important part is in the last couple of years, we're really getting down and giving guidance to staff as to what direction we need the community to go. Mayor, I don't want to see people laid off. That when we went revenue neutral last year, we shared with the public that it was going to be painful for a year, and they accepted that. I mean, not everybody accepted it. Not everybody went revenue neutral. We've heard that that not everyone was united on revenue neutral. The point being is it has put us where we are today to look at the budget and get a factual position, each and every one of us, of what's important to us collectively as a body. I'm pleased to see us taking the time to do it, as painful as it is, but the more we do it, the easier it will be. And I'd like to get those questions answered about where the revenue came for the budget adjustment in 25. I know that tomorrow, I said early on, if we didn't go revenue neutral, if we just took the assessed value, that would be a great starting point for us to have discussions on putting together a budget. And we jumped right out and went to the 3, and then David presented us one with the 2. And now, then it got down to taking a new appraised value of the 4.6. There's a way to get there. I believe we have duplicative services within agencies and departments that can be combined. And I don't think I don't know if we're ready to drill down that far yet. So in all fairness to staff, in all fairness to David, I don't think we are prepared to go there yet. I think we're still learning the process. But this was a good discussion this evening. I think we're seeing where people are at, where their hearts are at. But also there's going to be some tough decisions, as I stated. And I didn't come on the commission to kick the can down the road. A lot of us inherited this. David, you inherited this when you took the job. And, I don't want the next mayor and commissioners blaming us for failing to address the problem. So,
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis? Same question, just kind of your thoughts on where we should go with the next meeting.
Yeah, as I said before, I don't think we've had a formal presentation of our CIP. And so would like to have that more of a formal presentation there. I do think on the city side, there can be some cost savings. We also have healthy reserves on the city side. So I can entertain no mill adjustment. I think we could even discuss going revenue neutral on the city side as a compromise. On the county side, we all see what's on the screen. It would be physically irresponsible to not do something. I was just looking at the news. I think the DA is also going to charge the second killing, unfortunately, that we've seen in the officer with capital murder. And so now we're talking about additional resources that will be needed by that office. Who knows what will be asked of us? And I think rightfully so. And so I want us to be in a position to be able to react and to resource in the event we are called upon. But I do think the city side is healthier and we can make a decision from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burns?
Along that line, I don't think these cases are going to come until probably 28 and 29, quite frankly. So I don't know why the DA would need any more money than he already has. The capital state attorneys will come in and they represent the whole state. So they're busy in different places. So that's why all these are far out. And I think if we've seen in the last two that there was a plea. And so there wasn't any additional costs. There are a couple attorneys I know that work with the staff in Topeka, but they're already being paid. So I don't think we need to jump in there and put any more money in the DA's budget, 26, because there won't be any action. And if they plead guilty, then there are no costs. But we can talk about that. And other than that, I've got all the information I need to vote on a budget, thanks to staff and all the department heads. Thank you.
Commissioner Burns, I take that as you're in line with, like Commissioner Kane, with the administrator's recommendation.
Only my hairdresser knows for sure.
Okay. Commissioner Stites?
Well, I guess, so when you're talking about the DA and the money, that's a substantial amount of money that we were talking about putting into that. So, there's a cost on the county side where we're saying, you know what, we can't touch the county side of the budget, right? Well, now there's things that may be coming to light that's right. We can, we can touch the county side of the budget then. So, I'm Here, I'll just say this. I want to get to a revenue neutral budget. That's me. And also, when are we going to have more of a discussion about the pilot? And when it was asked of other cities, specifically Edwardsville, because Bonner's out now, they've got their own water district, about the pilot for Edwardsville, and then the pilot that was said last year, I think it was last year, that the pilot wasn't a legal charge to have on our taxpayers. When are we going to have that discussion and vet that out? Because that has budget implications also. If that was removed off of taxpayers' bills, things then become a little more easier to swallow, makes things a little more palatable. I don't know if that's a question that the county administrator would like to answer now or not.
Oh, I have to answer it. Okay.
Well, I didn't know. He was the one that said it, so I was just wondering.
Well, I think part of that, in my conversations with Mayor Kahar, that continues to be a request. I believe I'm going to have to defer to legal because a BPU is contracted to provide water to Edwardsville, but not electricity. And I'm not really abreast on, because the question is, and maybe this is for legal, the question is coming from Edwardsville is, they pay a pilot. That pilot is absorbed by the unified government, goes into our general fund. It's coming from Edwardsville. Their thought is that because their residents are paying a pilot to BPU for that service, that pilot, those funds shouldn't go to to Kansas City, Kansas. They should go to the city of Edwardsville, and they should be capturing that. My thought was if Edwardsville, and I told this to Mayor Kahar, and I believe their administrator at some point, that if that's the case, then I don't know if an ordinance would be in place from their city government that would direct, just like they would Evergy or any other service provider, to provide them that return. That's something their legal department have to look at. I don't know the answer to that, but there is a question as to the equity and the fairness of them paying a pilot and not getting the return on that like they would with any other, like we do here at the unified government.
Like a franchise fee.
So state law and then our ordinance recognize that pilot is collected from everyone and it is able to be collected by the municipality where the production facilities are located, not just distribution lines, but where the production facilities are located, because everyone would have the property tax built into their rates if the utility paid property tax, which they don't. So there's also case law that recognizes that the community that built those facilities sort of reaps the benefit of the pilot because they also carry the debt for those facilities. Also, there is, and I don't want to misquote it, but part of the ordinance for water is that there will not be a lower rate charged outside of the city limits than is charged inside the city limits. So currently it is done correctly according to state law and the unified government.
I think their question is just along the lines of any other utility that provides, water, gas, electricity as to a franchise fee, and what that would look like. They feel like that's something they may be entitled to, but I'm not sure the legalities of it.
And here, I don't want everybody to have sat through this while we talk about it. We can have that later. I really, the bigger question, and I appreciate you trying to do that, but there was a comment that was made last year that it was not legal to charge the pilot on are residents of Wyandotte County, and I'm talking about Kansas City, Kansas. Let's leave Edwardsville out of it. Where are we at with that discussion? Is that not true, or is that over, or did we find out
I would say-
differently?
I would save that question for tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We have a BPU, joint BPU meeting.
No,
And
we
that,
don't.
We don't.
No, we don't.
Mayor,
oh, well, that's coming up. So if you can save that, yes.
meeting tomorrow at
Yes.
Right.
5 o'clock, and Commissioner Hill and BPU member Rose Mulvaney Henry and I have been working on this for more than 6 months. Staff worked on it internally last year, as you know. So just to jump in front of all that very briefly and then leave it for the presentation, because we've done quite a bit of work and research and talk about it. We did all receive in December of last year, as we asked, a legal opinion about the legality of the pilot, and we all got that answer and got that legal opinion in December of last year. And in fact,
And that came in an email?
it came to us in an email, and I'll give them to you. I have them because we've been looking at them for 8 months. So I'll make sure and forward those to you so you have them. But it's legal. We got an outside legal opinion and an inside legal opinion, and it's
And
legal.
I'm totally good with it.
Okay,
But I would like to put that issue to bed then,
right.
the public, right?
We just,
We should put that out there so we quit getting asked about it.
we were getting ready to do that tomorrow night,
I guess I don't know how long it takes.
and the entire
No.
schedule changed. Well, we had a presentation ready to go.
Okay. But I mean, I don't know when, you said an email went out, when?
I think we got the result when we further discussed that item last fall. We asked the administrator to research that and get us a legal opinion, and they did that and gave us those answers. So I want to say December.
Right, and this is in all sense September, right? So I guess what I'm saying is I don't know why it would take 9 months for us to come out and say, hey, we found the founding, we found these things out, let's give the answer.
And
So that's
and
all.
I'll say
That's all
this,
I have. Thank you.
part of the reason why was because we were also working on whether we could find our way to separating some of those fees off of that bill. So we were working on more than just that, but that, I just wanted you to know.
Thank you, Commissioner. Almost. Commissioner Townsend, same question for you. Thoughts on
I appreciate this information. So I'm just looking for a date by when I need to be prepared. If I have any other questions, I'll ask staff. Generally speaking, I'm looking at what we might trim down, or cut. The information I asked for was provided, so now I just need some time to, analyze it and ask questions of staff in the outside, setting if I need to. So, and I'm sure I will need to, but
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner, Dr. Hill, if you're there?
We've temporarily lost Dr. Hill.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, here's what I have, Commission. I have Commissioner Townsend, you just heard her. She's open to trimming and cutting down. That kind of aligns with where I'm, with Commissioner Bynum had mentioned. Commissioner Kane is saying, just go with the administrator's recommendation. Commissioner Lopez is on the opposite end of that, saying we need a complete deep dive of line items and look at that to further the conversation. Commissioner Bynum is saying, look at cuts, and she's open to the no mill increase. And we've got to find the cuts to get us to the no mill increase. Commissioner Burrows appears to be no mill increase. The budget adjustment for 2025, that information. And looking at duplication of services and any redundancies and having staff look at that. Commissioner Davis wants to look at the CMIP projects along with myself. That presentation, he's open to no mill adjustment on KCK. I believe, but not on the county. And also looking at potentially, he's open to, the reserves. Commissioner Burns is basically in line with, Commissioner Kane, following the administrator's recommendation. Commissioner Stites is also, basically at a revenue neutral budget he'd like to see, but he's open to the no mill increase and finding a way to have a no mill increase.
I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I didn't say that. I said I'm looking for a revenue neutral budget.
Well, I went back to what you,
Okay, that's why I just wanted to update you.
okay, I got latest update, revenue neutral budget for Commissioner Stites. So, staff, hopefully you got all that. So I guess what we need to do to try and capture everybody, we already have the administrator's recommendation, that's 2 commissioners. The majority of the commissioners would like to see a no meal increase, budget, and then talk about the cuts. And then on the other spectrum, Commissioner Stites would like to talk about a revenue neutral budget with cuts. I can say the majority of the commissioners are looking at a no meal increase with cuts as the way is what my data is saying. And I just need direction from you all when you want a meeting to discuss these. Okay, Monica? There's a recommendation for Tuesday of next week.
Tuesday the 2nd.
Okay, well, that's Commissioner Bynum. Or the 4th.
We have a meeting already scheduled on the 4th.
The same day as the meeting?
I cannot do the 2nd.
Okay, I tell you what, Monica's gonna put out a poll and come up with a date. And I think we have all the information, staff hopefully got the notes, and we have all the information, given to them that they need to kind of get us to, I guess the biggest portion of this is the, no meal increase and looking at what available cuts. And then hopefully we can come back and we can talk about, these items at the next, so these would be cuts. We're talking about cuts. So the next meeting would be no meal increase with cuts as an option, but you still have commissioners, out there that, would like to go with the administrator's recommendation. And then Commissioner Davis, I believe everybody agrees with Commissioner Davis. We'd like to see the CMIP projects, what are there, what's available, as an option to be pushed out. Commissioner Davis, I'm sorry if I missed something. I want to make sure I capture CMIP, but was there, I know there was something, I apologize.
Yeah, if we could also get a follow-up with fire management, ACKFD, and Local 64, and it doesn't have to be long or anything. We just need to know what the results were of the conversation and what is in the CIP. That is it.
Okay, staff, do we have all that? Administrator? Okay, Commissioner Townsend.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just with regarding the statement I made about looking at cuts, I didn't mean for staff to go back and try to trim down or anything like that. Looking at this, there'd be some recommendations that we could, up or down on it. That's all I meant. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Is there any other further business for tonight?
Maybe second.
I'll accept those motions. Clerk, roll call.
Roll call, Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
Burns,
Aye.
Hill. We don't have Commissioner Hill. Kane,
Aye.
Lopez,
Aye.
Stites, Davis,
Aye.
Bynum. Motion's 8-0, carried.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.